Chapter 579. There was nothing behind him, there was no sign of Jun Moxia at all. Ning Wuqing's gaze slowly swept across the area. Suddenly, he extended his body and flew out of the area of falling rocks. The sudden wave of flying rocks just now weighed more than 10,000 pounds. Even though Ning Wuqing's strength had broken through, he still suffered from serious injuries. If there was another round like this, he really wouldn't be able to take it. A gentleman does not stand under a collapsing wall. Ning Wuqing made a prompt decision to leave this dangerous place immediately. There was a grassland and a forest in front of him. Ning Wuqing's body slowly descended, both his feet touched the ground, his eyes were observing, suddenly his feet went soft, he did not know when a big hole had appeared in the ground. Ning Wuqing was caught off guard, his body fell down, but he immediately reacted, he fiercely raised his chi, sword chi suddenly appeared in his hand, the sword chi suddenly struck down, with the help of the recoil, his whole body was forcibly pulled out. Ning Wuqing's reaction was brilliant. Unfortunately, as soon as his body came out, Jun Moxi appeared in front of him with a solemn face. The sword in his hand was aimed at his eyes. Ning Wuqing roared. He raised his arms and counterattacked with the sword. But his body could not stop falling into the hole. The hole that appeared out of nowhere was at least 7 or 8 feet deep. Ning Wuqing held his spirit and chi and descended slowly. Jun Moxi was still outside. There would be no more sneak attacks in the hole. Once his toes touched the ground, he could jump out. This distance is not enough to bury me, Ning Wuqing. Even if you fill the hole with sand and stones, I can still rush out in one breath. But just as he was falling, another lightning sword suddenly appeared on the mud wall of the cave. This was out of Ning Wuqing's expectation. He was surprised and tried his best to avoid it. But his shoulder was still cut. Ning Wuqing was furious. He roared and slashed with his other hand. With a bang, a deep hole appeared in the ground where the sword was drawn, they were about to reach the bottom. Another strange stab. This time, the target was the back of his head. Ning Wuqing only managed to catch his breath halfway before he forcefully swallowed it back down. He used all his remaining strength to flip his body over and fell head first onto the ground. However, there was still one zhang to go. As long as my feet are on the ground, I can immediately counterattack. No matter how cunning Jun Moxi is, I swear I will kill you today. However, Ning Wuqing immediately panicked again. What was going on? Just now, they had clearly seen that they were about to reach the ground, but now, why was it a dark hole again? There was still an unknown distance beneath his feet. What was going on? Ever since they started falling, whenever Ning Wuqing made the slightest movement to take a breath, the earth would stab him with a deadly sword at the right time. Their targets were all vital parts of his body, hoping to disrupt his breathing and cause him to be at a loss for what to do. Unexpectedly, he never had the time to take a breath. At this moment, Ning Wuqing's old face was flushed red, as if he was smeared with vermilion. Even if he was an unparalleled expert with a long meridian, if he couldn't take a breath during a fight, he would also suffocate to death. And now that Ning Wuqing had suffered a series of blows, it was obvious that he was on the brink. What was worse was that he was falling head first onto the ground, but halfway through, he was forced to fall head first onto the ground. He fell down like a head-on scallion. What was even more infuriating was that whenever he tried to use his arm to stab into the mud wall to stabilize his body, the mud wall would instantly turn into nothingness. It was even more unbearable. This kind of technique was definitely not something that a human Xian cultivator could possess. At this moment, Ning Wuqing was finally terrified. He couldn't catch his breath for a long time, and his face had already turned purple. The fall seemed to be endless, as if it would never reach the bottom. The continuous attacks along the way had already reached 15 to 16 times. Each time, life and death were separated by a hair's breadth. Now, even if there was a chance for him to catch his breath, Ning Wuqing didn't dare to breathe anymore. Because, As long as his last breath of Xian Qi was released, he wouldn't be able to dodge, and could only wait helplessly for his death. He could only continue to fall due to inertia. Ning Wuqing even felt that, according to the speed of his fall, he had already fallen for at least 100 feet, and still hadn't reached the bottom. Damn it, even if it's a cliff, this height should be enough. Finally, bam! Ning Wuqing's entire body fell heavily on the ground, and with a cracking sound, many bones in his body were broken at the same time. His head was deeply inserted into the bottom of the hole. He immediately fainted. Because, the underground was actually a stone ground that was even harder than the mountain rocks. The fact that Ning Wuqing's brain didn't burst from the impact showed that his skull was quite sturdy. In the darkness, a shadow flashed, and Jun Moxie appeared next to Ning Wuqing. He laughed coldly, and stamped his foot. The rock split open, and Ning Wuqing's head popped out, dripping with blood. Victory or defeat was decided just like that. With Ning Wuqing's current strength, if Jun Moxie were to fight him head-on, he would definitely die. However, Jun Dashao had countless tricks up his sleeves. He led Ning Wuqing by the nose, and used his 5 elements force to set up death traps one after another, making Ning Wuqing exhausted from running for his life. He actually managed to drag this great expert down in front of him. The heavily injured Ning Wuqing slowly woke up. After thinking for a while, he realized that he was lying on the ground. His entire body was in pain, and his head was itchy, as if there was a sticky liquid flowing out. He stretched out his hand to touch it, and felt a sharp pain. His consciousness gradually returned, but it was difficult to circulate his qi. At least a dozen bones in his body were broken, and he had lost all his combat strength. A blurry figure stood in front of him. Ning Wuqing closed his eyes, and sighed deeply. He said in a hoarse voice, "Jun Moxie. Is it you?" "It's not me. Ning Wuqing, it seems that you haven't lost your mind from the fall." Jun Moxie's indifferent voice was heard. Ning Wuqing sighed regretfully, and asked weakly, "Jun Moxie, I lost this round, but you, are you a human? Or, are you a ghost?" He paused, and said, "Can you control the land?" Control the land. This was a supernatural power that only the legendary immortals had. This kind of thing had never happened in this world. In fact, if someone had said this to Ning Wuqing before this, he would have snorted disdainfully. But now that he had experienced it himself, he could not help but ask this question. After experiencing so many things, if Ning Wuqing still could not see that Jun Moxie was strange and mysterious, then he was really too stupid. Jun Moxie was silent for a while, and asked, "What do you think?" But Ning Wuqing took it as a silent agreement, and laughed bitterly. "No wonder you don't care about anything. No wonder you are so bold. So you have a supernatural power that can steal the fortune of heaven and earth. Such a person, it's a pity that we still insist on being enemies with you, and step by step forced you to walk the path of opposing us. You are a frog at the bottom of a well, and you don't know how big the Milky Way is. Our 3 holy lands have always treated all living beings as ants for us to protect, but it turns out that we are the frogs at the bottom of a well who don't know the immensity of heaven and earth." Jun Moxie was silent for a long time, and then said, "Our positions have long been clear. Even if the 3 holy lands do not become enemies with me, I will still find you in the future. You should understand what I mean." Ning Wuqing coughed and laughed bitterly, and said, "That's right. For the sake of Venerable Mei. How could you do this?" He tried his best to raise his head, but his neck was broken, and he could not. He said, "Jun Moxie. What I said today, although it was to sow discord, was also the truth. I hope that you will consider it carefully." Jun Moxie was silent. Lenglang said, "You don't have to worry about this, I have my own plans." Ning Wuqing laughed mockingly, and said, "Looks like I can't take revenge anymore." Jun Moxie said indifferently, "What do you think? Do you think that the current you still has the power to kill me?" "I don't." Ning Wuqing laughed crazily, and tears and snot flowed out together. He laughed mockingly, but this mockery was a mockery to himself. He laughed for a while, and then stopped, and said in a low voice, June Moxie, I beg you for one thing. What is it? June Moxie could vaguely guess something. Send me on my way. I really want to go, while my second brother can still recognize this broken body of mine. Ning Wuqing's eyes gradually became unfocused. My brother is waiting for me on the road now. I can see him, he is waving at me. June Moxie. You don't know, although my brother's Xian cultivation is high, he is timid. When he was young, he would be afraid walking alone at night. I want to hold his hand. June Moxie took a deep breath, and did not speak. He only heard Ning Wuqing murmur, this road is very dark, very cold. If not for me, my brother, how would he dare to walk? He will be lonely, and afraid. I am his big brother, always his big brother. I want to accompany him. I want to tell father and mother that I have taken Fengyi back into the family. He is a member of the Ning family, he is Ning Fengyi now, father and mother still don't know. He said slowly, and the blood at the corner of his mouth slowly flowed out, and dyed his white beard red. June Moxie sighed in his heart. Although Ning Wuqing was not a good person, his dedication to family was really touching. And Xiao He. My Xiao He. After being separated for 100 years, we are going to meet again today. From now on, no one can bully you anymore. Ning Wuqing's face was flushed with excitement. In his eyes, there was a tinge of happiness. However, his eyes were already in a daze. He shouted, reunion. I'm going home. Suddenly, his body straightened, and with an unknown strength, his dying body actually sat up straight. His neck, which was originally broken, actually twisted back with a cracking sound. With a hoarse voice, he roared, June Moxie, send me on my way ah. They are waiting for me ah. Xiao He's eyes are filled with tears, she has already waited for me for 170 years. Don't wait any longer ah, quick. Hurry. I beg you. Ning Wuqing's eyes shone in the darkness, and his face was full of longing and happiness. It was as if his family was really waiting for him on the road, waiting for him to reunite with them. June Moxie closed his eyes, and the divine sword blood of yellow flame accurately pierced into Ning Wuqing's heart. He said in a low voice, I hope that you can really reunite. These few days, the book reviews and comments section has not been peaceful. I want to tell my brothers and sisters one thing, we are us. We have the pride of the evil monarch. As for the troublemakers in the book reviews and comments section, there is no need to pay attention to them. I will write my novel seriously, and you guys can read it quietly. That's good. We only seek peace of mind, we don't need to care about external storms. I only hope that you guys are happy, I don't want you guys to be angry. Everyone calm down. I don't want to see my brothers and sisters filled with anger, I only want to see you guys smiling. Chapter 580. Ning Wuqing let out a sigh and struggled to say, Thank you. His head tilted to one side. An expert of his generation had passed away. Perhaps, in another world, he had reunited with his family, living happily together. There was no hatred, no separation, no death, no regrets, only family reunion, peace and happiness. June Moxie took a deep breath. He felt an indescribable heaviness in his heart. He stood up slowly and said in a low voice, I am a man of many emotions, but fate makes fools of me. I am helpless and heartless. I hope that in your next life, you will not be so heartless. In this place of rest, hundreds of feet underground, no one can disturb your peace. You can rest in peace. After saying that, June Moxie's body rose up. As his body rose, the soil under his feet collapsed, burying Ning Wuqing's body hundreds of feet underground. A glaring light shone into his eyes. June Moxie had finally come out. For a moment, he felt like he had returned from hell to the human world. Ning Wuqing's words before his death had touched Jun Moxie a lot. The ground returned to its original state. No one would be able to tell that a terrifying and bizarre battle had taken place here, and that a peerless expert of the Beyond Supremacy stage had been buried here forever. Moxia. Where are you? From afar, Mei Shuiyan's anxious voice could be heard. A happy smile appeared on Jun Moxie's face. He raised his voice and said, I am here. After saying that, he fell to the ground. Against Ning Wuqing, although Jun Moxie had won, he had paid a hefty price. He had used all his spiritual power to support the explosion of the power of Earth, and he had used the yin-yang escape to launch a surprise attack. Although he had succeeded in dragging Ning Wuqing to death, at this moment, Jun Moxie was almost at the end of his rope. There was very little spiritual power left in his body. If it wasn't for the fact that he was worried about Mei Shuiyan, Jun Moxie almost wanted to hide in the Hongjun Pagoda to recover. After all, that was the safest place. Suddenly hearing Jun Moxia's voice, Mei Shuiyan was overjoyed. Just now, she had used the Sky Law Extreme technique to end the battle as quickly as possible. She looked everywhere for traces of Jun Moxia and Ning Wuqing, but she could not find them. She could not help but feel anxious. She searched everywhere, and was close to despair. After all, Ning Wuqing's life force was used up, and his Xian strength increased by a shocking amount. Moreover, at the crucial moment, he had a breakthrough, and his strength increased. If it wasn't for Jun Moxie who had told her not to worry and that he had a way to escape, Mei Shuiyan, she would have abandoned her opponents and followed him. But her heart was still hanging in the air. Now that she had finally heard Jun Moxia's voice, her heart that had been suspended in the air finally relaxed. A white shadow flashed, and Mei Shuiyan appeared in front of him. The moment she saw him, a gentle smile appeared on her beautiful face. There were more than 10 places on Mei Shuiyan's body that were dyed red. There were even some places where blood was slowly seeping out. But it was obvious that Mei Shuiyan didn't take care of her own injuries and rushed to find Jun Moxie. Jun Moxie sat on the ground powerlessly. He looked at Mei Shuiyan and said softly, "You're injured." Even Jun Moxie didn't realize that his voice was filled with endless tenderness and heartache. This was a world of difference from his previous words. There was no doubt that Jun Moxie had killed many people. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that he was numb to killing people. But there had never been anyone who could shock him as much as Ning Wuqing did today. From being affectionate to being emotionless. Because of affection, he became emotionless. In the end, he created the greatest tragedy and regret, Ning Wuqing. This made Jun Moxie feel very emotional. Jun Moxie had never cared so much about the people around him, his own family. He made a vow in his heart, as long as my family is alive, I will make sure that they are happy. I will not let them have any regrets in their lives. The remorse of Ning Wuqing, which was worse than death, really shocked Jun Moxie. Jun Moxie wouldn't allow such a thing to happen to himself, or to his family. How can I deal with those people without paying a price? Mei Shuiyan smiled sweetly. She didn't care about her own pain at all. She asked with concern, "What about you? How are you? Where's Ning Wuqing? Since I'm still alive, he's naturally dead." "Don't worry, I just overexerted myself and collapsed." "There's no other problem," Jun Moxie smiled and said, "It's much better than Ning Wuqing being buried in the soil." "Ah. Buried in the soil. You mean you've killed Ning Wuqing?" Mei Shuiyan widened her eyes in surprise. In her imagination, Jun Moxie could use his elusive lightness kung fu to stall Ning Wuqing. As for winning and killing Ning Wuqing, Mei Shuiyan didn't even think that Jun Moxie could do it. More accurately, he died because of the devil in his heart. Jun Moxie thought deeply and said, "He was too eager to kill me. That's why I had the chance to take advantage of him. If he had fought steadily, the result might not have been the same. Even if I had a way to save my life, I wouldn't have been able to kill him." Jun Moxia remembered that he had purposely run towards the bottom of the cliff. With one look, he knew that there was no path there. If he had run in that direction, if he did not have a card up his sleeve, then wouldn't he be seeking his own death? Anyone with a discerning eye would be able to see that there was definitely something fishy going on. But Ning Wuqing had lost his mind due to hatred, and without thinking, he followed him. It was because of the first landslide caused by the power of earth that Ning Wuqing was injured and his combat ability was greatly reduced. That was why Ning Wuqing was defeated and killed. If not for that incident, even if Jun Moxie used the power of earth to set up countless traps, the powerful Ning Wuqing would be able to break through them in an instant. Moreover, he would still have the strength to charge forward. His current spiritual energy was limited. He had just started cultivating the power of earth, and it was far from being as easy as cultivating the power of gold. It was really hard to determine what would happen in the end. Although he had the yin-yang escape and would definitely not die, Ning Wuqing would not die either. As for Ning Wuqing, Jun Moxie was not willing to talk too much. He asked, "Where are those people?" Mei Shuyan's face turned cold and she said, "Kill them." She tilted her head slightly and looked in the direction she came from. She said in a low voice, "They attacked without any regard for their lives. I could only use all my strength to deal with them. Moreover, I was worried about your safety and wanted to end the battle quickly. In the time it takes to drink a cup of tea, I used all the best moves of Tian Fa's Heaven Punishing Sword. I used it 3 times before I could end the battle. They are all dead." Jun Moxie could not help but stare with his eyes wide open. Those were 6 superior supreme experts and 11 supreme experts. They all died in the hands of Mei Shuyan. Why is this girl so ruthless today? Even I didn't expect that after I got rid of my old injuries, I would be able to do things more smoothly than before I was injured. Especially in terms of speed, it has reached a level that I could not even dream of reaching in the past. Moreover, during this period of time, the progress of my cultivation is obviously much faster than before. Therefore, this battle was unexpectedly easy, Mei Shuyan said thoughtfully. It seems that those 3 elixirs of yours are really useful. Jun Moxie laughed and said, "Do not be careless. This time, they only have 6 superior supreme experts. Moreover, their tactics were not good, and they were scared out of their wits by your tyrannical strength. Also, your shocking speed caught them off guard. Moreover, they did not have a leader to command them, and 3 or 4 of them were seriously injured in the Jun family, so their combat strength is not at full strength. You could only be so relaxed with all these factors added together. But if there is a next time, it is better to be more cautious." "Okay." Mei Shuyan gently nodded her head. Then, she raised her eyebrows and said, "This time, the elusive world of immortals really touched my bottom line. Otherwise, I would not have been willing to be so heavy-handed. After all, most of the people here are qualified to participate in the war for seizing the heavens." "You mean, they said that after we get married, we will have a child?" Jun Moxie suddenly understood the reason why Mei Shuyan was so ruthless. "Yes." Mei Shuyan's face turned red, but then paled again. She said weakly, "Moxia, if that is really the case, what should we do? Wouldn't I be the one harming you? Even if we can ignore this problem and don't mind it, we still have to face it." Jun Moxie said confidently, "Shuyan, don't worry. That will definitely not happen. I am confident. You just need to believe me." He remembered the legend from his previous life. When a fox lady from Liaozhai married a human, didn't she still give birth to a son? When Bai Suzhen married Su Xian, didn't she also give birth to a chubby boy? Since they were both born from a human mother, how could they give birth to a Xian beast? Besides, even if they really gave birth to a Xian beast, with his and Mei Shuyan's genes, they would definitely be able to transform into a human form in a short period of time. It would not be a big deal. At most, they would not see outsiders for a period of time after they were born. In any case, their family would be living in the Tian Fa forest in the future. There would definitely be more beasts than humans there. Taking a step back, with the heaven-defying abilities of the Hongjun Pagoda, there was no way that Mei Shuyan would be left with such regrets. Before Jun Moxie understood the true abilities of the Hongjun Pagoda, he did not dare to make any guarantees. But ever since he saw the introduction to cultivation, Jun Moxie was full of confidence. Humans cultivate, demons cultivate, and Xian beasts belong to the demon race. Xian beast's transformation was the same as the demon race's transformation, there was no difference. Mei Shuyan was still a little worried. She frowned and said worriedly, "It's better to be safe than sorry. If something like that happens, wouldn't I, Mei Shuyan, be too sorry to the Jun family, and even more so to you?" "Shui Yan, don't worry. I really have a way. How could I just brush you off for such an important matter?" As he said that, Jun Moxie moved his mouth close to Mei Shuyan's ear and whispered for a while. Mei Shuyan blushed first, then finally felt relieved and said, "That's good." Chapter 581. Go away, stay away from me. Don't come near me. Can't you see that I'm injured? Mei Shuyan was embarrassed. After joking around for a while, the two of them started to treat Mei Shuyan's wounds. Jun Moxie's heart was aching. There were 13 wounds on Mei Shuyan's body. 7 were from a sword, and 4 were from a palm. Her waist and shoulders were bruised, but her internal injuries weren't serious. Most of them were superficial wounds. Even though the injuries weren't serious, Jun Moxie couldn't help but curse. He took out some medicinal pills and dissolved them with snow water. He also took out some medicinal pills and fed them to Mei Shuyan. Mei Shuyan's clothes were half off, and her skin was as white as snow. Her beautiful eyes were closed, and her body was trembling. She allowed Jun Moxie to treat her wounds, but she didn't move at all, since her heart belonged to him. What harm was there in her body? However, Jun Moxie didn't dare to have any other thoughts. The wounds on Mei Shuyan's body were all because of him. If it wasn't for the fact that she was worried about him, and didn't want to end the battle quickly, and took the risk of using her sword, Mei Shuyan could have easily dealt with the 17 experts, and killed them one by one. Ending the battle quickly was the shortest, but it was also the most unwise way of fighting. If that was the case, she wouldn't have been able to bear such heavy injuries. Thinking about this, Jun Moxie couldn't help but feel a little heartache. Especially the sword wound on her back, it was half a foot long, and it almost reached the bone. For a peerless beauty like Mei Shuyan, even one such scar on her body would cause a slight blemish, let alone so many of them. Jun Moxie applied the medicine carefully, and at the same time, he mobilized the spiritual energy from heaven and earth, and directed it into Mei Shuyan's meridians, and covered Mei Shuyan's wounds. He was doing his best to treat her. Actually, the medicine that Jun Moxie carried with him could completely cure it, and it would definitely not leave any scars. It would just take a little more time. Using the Hongjun Pagoda's enormous spiritual qi to heal his injuries was truly a waste. But Jun Dashao had plenty of capital, so even if it was a waste, it was a waste. He didn't feel the slightest bit of heartache. If the Hongjun Pagoda had a spirit, it would definitely be filled with grief and indignation. "I am a great spiritual treasure in the world, but in your hands, I have become a tool to pick up girls." Mei Shuyan only felt an inexplicable cooling sensation from her wound, and her whole body felt comfortable. It must be the medicine taking effect. Then, she suddenly felt a surge of spiritual energy from heaven and earth rushing into her body like a tidal wave. In a split second, she felt a sudden jolt in her mind, as if every strand of her hair was standing up in excitement. Mei Shuyan was overjoyed. This was the best spiritual energy from heaven and earth for her cultivation, and it was just right for her to cultivate and purify her own spiritual energy. But just as she had this thought, she realized that the spiritual energy from heaven and earth had suddenly changed direction. It had actually gathered at her wound, and was healing it. Her wound immediately felt numb and itchy, which was a sign that it was healing. But Mei Shuyan almost went mad with anger. This is so much pure spiritual energy from heaven and earth. I need it so badly. But it's being used to heal these insignificant wounds. What a waste, what a typical wastrel. Looks like June Moxie's reputation as a wastrel was not just for show. But she couldn't control it. This made Mei Shuyan even more anxious. Finally, she couldn't help but ask, June Moxie, what the hell are you doing? What the hell? I'm healing your wound, I'm not playing any tricks. June Moxie said matter-of-factly. To him, he had plenty of spiritual energy from heaven and earth, so there was nothing to be regretful about. Mei Shuyan almost fainted from anger. She gritted her teeth and said, You. It's such a small wound, and you're wasting the spiritual energy from heaven and earth. You. This is intolerable. June Moxie was a little puzzled. He blinked his eyes and said, You really need this? You should have told me earlier. If you didn't tell me, how would I know you need it? You should have told me if you needed it. At this time, the treatment of the wound had been completed. June Moxie thoughtfully helped Mei Shuyan put on the bear fur coat. It had to be said that the bear fur coat that Bear Mountain bought had been very useful on this journey. Nonsense. I cultivate spiritual energy, and what I need is the spiritual energy from heaven and earth. Furthermore, the spiritual energy from heaven and earth is extremely pure. I've never seen it before. Such a rare item. You actually used it to heal such a small wound. You're really pissing me off. I can't wait to bite you to death. Mei Shuyan said hatefully. Ah. Ha ha ha. June Moxie laughed heartily. This time, he had obtained a treasure. He opened his palm, and with a loud boom, the surroundings were filled with extremely pure spiritual energy. Mei Shuyan's eyes widened. This. What's going on? Hee, this thing, I have a lot of it. June Moxie frivolously stretched out his finger and lifted Mei Shuyan's chin. He said in a roguish manner, Beauty, as long as you serve me well and satisfy me, I'll have as much spiritual energy as you want. As he said this, June Dashao shrugged his shoulders and laughed. Beauty Mei slapped away a certain lecher's hand. She pouted her lips and turned around, ignoring him. In fact, her heart was in a dilemma. Should she let him take advantage of her? That's the spiritual energy from heaven and earth. Such pure spiritual energy is something that I've never seen before. I really want the spiritual energy from heaven and earth. I won't beg him. If he dares to refuse, mystical beasts were pure in nature. If it was any other girl, as long as she pouted her lips, frowned her eyebrows, or showed a hint of unhappiness, June Dashao would immediately offer up the spiritual energy from heaven and earth. He would even have to be extra careful, however, with Mei Shuyan's pride, even if it was someone close to her like June Moxie, whom she had decided to entrust her life to, she would not act coquettishly and beg him. Of course, June Dashao naturally knew this in his heart. Because of Mei Shuyan's injuries, June Moxie decided on his own and the two of them rested for a few days. Mei Shuyan was very touched and naturally did not object. As for the place to recuperate, it was still the same old method. June Moxie once again created a snow room under a large amount of snow. Without anyone knowing, the two of them used a large amount of elixirs and the most pure and abundant spiritual energy from heaven and earth to recuperate. Naturally, their progress was very fast. However, in these few days, there was a great panic in the outside world. There's still no news from the hermitage. Zi Jinghong paced back and forth with her hands behind her back. She frowned. Where's Ning Wuqing? Did I fucking slip? Although they had also suffered a crushing defeat, Zi Jinghong would never have thought that the Hermitage's army would be completely annihilated. This assumption was too exaggerated and unbelievable. Although the Hermitage's leading figure, half-bodied, was dead, there was still the experienced and astute Ning Wuqing. With only one decision-maker, it would be easier to carry out the orders. Moreover, apart from Ning Wuqing, there were still as many as 8 superior supreme masters and 20 supreme masters. With such a large force, it was impossible for Venerable Mei to defeat them all by himself, let alone kill them all. The biggest possibility was that Venerable Mei had seen that the situation was not good, and had escaped. But, where had Ning Wuqing led his troops to? Could it be that he had chased after them? If that was the case, it was not good. After all, Venerable Mei's lightness skill was unparalleled in the world. No one in the world could be on par with him. If he had escaped, there would be no reason to chase after him. As she thought about it, Zi Jingheng became indignant. Ning Wuqing claims to be an astute person, but he has lived for a long time. How could he have missed such an opportunity? Regardless of whether he had succeeded or not, whether he had won or lost, he should have sent a message, right? How could he have disappeared without a trace? This is simply intolerable. With such a way of doing things, it's difficult to take care of both the front and the back. How could he have accomplished anything great? Xiao Weiqing sat on the other side, quietly drinking his tea. He didn't say a word for a long time. In the room, there were 5 to 6 superior supreme experts, including those from the illusory ocean of blood and the Great Golden City. They sat with a solemn expression, silently thinking about something. This place was actually a small market. There was only one inn in this area, and it had already been taken over by the illusory blood sea. But even so, for the many of them, it was far from enough. After Xiao Weicheng and the rest arrived, even the dining hall was temporarily changed into a guest room. The group of supreme martial artist experts were like porters. 4 or 5 of them were squeezed into a room. It was a sorry sight. Brother Xiao, you mentioned before that the supreme killer, Chu Chihuan, also participated in the battle between your sect and Venerable Mei? Is this true? Zi Jingheng cursed and was angry for a while. Seeing that no one responded, she didn't feel embarrassed and turned around to ask. That's just my guess at best. Xiao Weiqing adjusted the crown on his head and answered gloomily. He didn't even bat an eyelid. Until now, he was still brooding over Zi Jingheng's plan to let the Great Golden City be the vanguard. Naturally, he did not treat him well. If it wasn't for the fact that he still had the illusion of killing Venerable Mei and wanted to get a share of the loot, he would have returned to the Great Golden City long ago. But where did Brother Xiao get the basis for such a guess? Zi Jingheng said cautiously, Brother Xiao, if it's just Chu Chihuan, of course, we don't care about him. But Venerable Mei's Xian Qi is much stronger than you and me. Now, he has abandoned his hypocritical mask and revealed his fierce, cruel, and cunning personality. If he really has a mysterious helper like Chu Chihuan, it will be a big problem. We must not let our guard down. You don't have to say that. In the previous battle, it was this damn Chu Chihuan who killed many of our people. Xiao Weiqing said reluctantly, all the victims were killed with one blow. Even those who were close to him didn't hear any sound. Other than that bastard Chu Chihuan, there's no other person in the world with such exquisite assassination skills. Chapter 582. In that case, only the rumored Chu Chihuan can do it. I can't believe that a kid who hasn't even reached the level of Superior Supreme has such skills. Zi Jingheng sucked in a breath of cold air. Suddenly, he was concerned about another important matter. So, Venerable Mei had passed through your first round previously, but she wasn't injured at all? His combat power is intact? You didn't even try to stop him. Xiao Weiqing blushed and slammed the table. He stood up and shouted, Zi Jingheng, are you mocking me? If you were me, would you have stopped him? His slap on the table was so loud that everyone raised their heads and looked at him. I wouldn't dare. Brother Xiao, please calm down. Zi Jingheng hurriedly pacified them, but in his heart, he despised them incessantly. It's clear that you guys were the ones who scared the guts out of Venerable Mei and that Chu Chi-hun, who doesn't even exist, to the point that you guys lost your battle power and retreated without a fight. At most, I only said half a sentence. Damn it, even if you knew you couldn't defeat him, you should have fought with your lives. Even if you were killed, it would be a good thing for us to take advantage of it. The atmosphere in the room suddenly became awkward. At this moment, the door opened and two people came in silently. They cupped their fists and bowed to Zi Jinghong. "Third Overlord, we are back." These two people were the people Zi Jinghong sent to check on the situation of Hermitage. "It's good that you are back safely. How is the situation?" Zi Jinghong asked anxiously. "The situation is quite tragic," one of them said with a serious face. "Actually, we didn't find out the specific situation. But based on our experience, Hermitage must have suffered a lot in this battle. They might even have been wiped out." "What?" Zi Jinghong and Xiao Weiqing stood up at the same time, their faces turning pale with fright. "What exactly is going on? Quickly tell us." This sentence, the two of them said almost at the same time. It was true that they hoped that the elusive land of immortals would suffer a great loss in strength. They would be even happier if the entire army of the elusive land of immortals was completely annihilated. However, if that were to happen, wouldn't the winner of this battle be Venerable Mei? And they would have to face such a strong enemy. "We went to the mountain pass where Hermitage was lying in ambush and found traces of an extremely tragic battle 100 feet away from the mountain pass. All the accumulated snow within a radius of several thousand feet has been swept away. There are also a thick layer of marks on the ground that was cut by the saber light and the sword qi. The marks are about 5 feet deep. The sword marks and the saber marks are very clear. There are about several hundred places where there are obvious bloodstains on the ground," the man said slowly with a serious face. This person's name was Go Buhuan. Before he entered the illusory ocean of blood, he was an expert in tracking. Now that he was talking about the situation, it was clear and organized, so that everyone could see it with their own eyes. There are actually traces of blood in hundreds of places. Zi Jinghong and Xiao Weiqing looked at each other and saw the shock in each other's eyes. What kind of tragic battle was it to cause such a large area to have traces of blood? This battle was bound to be extremely tragic. Then, it meant that's right. I checked the blood bit by bit and carefully identified it. Some of the blood was bright red and had a slight fishy smell. It should be blood from the skin or limbs. Some of the blood was thick and dark red. When you put it in your mouth, it felt like it was real. Those were blood from the internal organs. Go Buhuan stuck out his tongue and licked his lips. His slender tongue slid down and down his lips. He seemed to be enjoying the taste. A few people around him had a strange look on their faces. They turned their heads away and had the urge to vomit. It's fine to identify it, but this guy actually tasted it. If you tasted it, then you tasted it. Is there a need to say it out loud? You actually said it so vividly. Damn it, why don't you just say that some of the blood is blood from the internal organs? You said it with such relish. This is human blood. Damn it. What a pervert. Zi Jinghong's face was also somewhat pale. She forced a smile and lowered her eyes to avoid looking at his mouth. She asked, "Are there any other clues?" "Of course, we couldn't determine it just by looking at the blood. So, I started to search for the corpses. Third Lord, I was trapped under a cliff and had no food to eat. I ate the flesh of corpses. So, I'm very sensitive to the smell of corpses. I thought that I could easily find." Before he could finish his words, a person beside him suddenly stood up with a swoosh. His face was pale. He cupped his fists and said, "Third Lord, I have some private matters to deal with. I need to go out for some fresh air. Please excuse me." Without waiting for Zi Jinghong's reply, he lifted the cotton curtain and walked out as if he was escaping. Suddenly, there was a sound of vomiting outside the door. Not knowing if it was a chain reaction, a few more people stood up and apologized with a strange look on their faces. Before they left, they looked at the guy who was making the report with hatred. They swore in their hearts that they would never eat at the same table with this bastard again. He actually ate corpses before, he's really a fucking beast. Killing. Everyone had killed before, and they had killed quite a lot. But eating human flesh, especially eating corpses. Ugh! Damn it, this is too disgusting. In an instant, there were only 3 people left in the hall, Zi Jinghong, Xiao Weicheng, and this guy who claimed to have eaten corpses before. Even his companion who went to investigate with him had slipped away at the last moment. On the other hand, Zi Jinghong and Xiao Weicheng had amazing composure. Although their faces were a little pale, their bodies were a little shaky, and even their Adam's apple was moving up and down, as if they were swallowing something, they were still able to maintain their composure. As expected of the leaders of the 2 holy lands, they were really amazing. Third Lord? Are you alright? Go Buhuan looked at the leader of his side strangely. After a long while, Zi Jinghong's face turned pale. She gulped down something and frowned. Her face was full of disgust. She waved her hand weakly and said, "You can continue. Tell me the main points. There's no need to report those unimportant things. Just tell me the conclusion." "Yes, Third Lord. I have experience, so I naturally know that when a human corpse has just died, there will be a strange smell. This smell is very special, like the smell of pork that has been soaked in water. It tastes a little sour, but it's very chewy. Especially the muscles on the thighs, the taste is the most delicious and chewy." Bam! Zi Jinghong could not bear it any longer, and suddenly kicked out, causing this fella, who was frowning and deep in thought, to tumble in a somersault. Zi Jinghong then stepped on him, and gave him a few consecutive punches. He then scolded angrily, "I asked you to get to the main point, to get to the conclusion, and you fucking kept reminiscing about the corpses. Ugh. Ugh, fuck you. Don't you have ears, or don't you have a brain? Can't you understand what I'm saying? Ugh. Ugh." As the saying goes, human strength is sometimes limited. Humans always have their limits. No matter how high one's status was, there was no exception. Zi Jinghong, who had always been graceful and dignified, could be said to have maintained this graceful and dignified demeanor for her whole life. It was unexpected that she would actually curse here today. All her demeanor was gone in an instant. Not only did she call herself I, she even said it out loud, and her voice was so loud that it was as if she was afraid that others couldn't hear her. Her punches were heavy and swift. Every punch made a whooshing sound. That guy was beaten black and blue in an instant. Even the weakest person staying in this inn was a supreme master-level expert. Naturally, each and every one of them had sharp ears and sharp eyes. At that moment, each and every one of them pricked up their ears to listen to the gossip. Zi Jinghong getting angry, this was really something that was rarely seen in 100 years. Why was it like this? In fact, Xiao Weicheng's face was also extremely ugly at this moment. If it wasn't for the fact that this person didn't belong to the Great Golden City, if it wasn't for the fact that he shouldn't have overstepped his authority, how could it be Zi Jinghong's turn to fight? She would have long left the north and south to fight. At this moment, seeing that Zi Jinghong was teaching that guy a lesson, as an outsider, not only did he not come forward to stop her, but he also felt very satisfied. He deserved to be beaten. This is too fucking satisfying. Go Buhuan screamed in pain, but he didn't dare to fight back or dodge. His eyes were blank and indignant. What did I do wrong? Why are you beating me like this? Until now, this guy still doesn't know what he did wrong. After a round of beating, Zi Jinghong, who had vented the frustration in her chest, finally stood up and let go of him. She took a deep breath and drank a mouthful of tea with her crooked eyes. Only then did she regain her usual graceful demeanor. She said lightly, "Get up, continue to talk. Get to the point, get to the conclusion, and don't talk about those irrelevant things." Go Buhuan groaned twice. His face looked like he had been forcefully beaten. He wanted to cry, but no tears came out. Even though he was also a supreme-level master, but Zi Jinghong was his immediate superior. Moreover, he had the cultivation level of a superior supreme. This beating was not easy at all. Moreover, he did not have the chance to retaliate, nor did he have the chance to retaliate. I've searched for a few miles, but I actually didn't smell that kind of smell. He had just been beaten up, and he had a rough idea of the reason. Naturally, he didn't dare to continue to say those special words, although he still had the desire to talk about it. But when Zi Jinghong and Xiao Weicheng heard the word smell, their faces still twitched. Zi Jinghong's fists involuntarily tightened, and she stared at him fiercely. This is really strange. Every person who has just died will have that kind of smell. The smell of this kind of corpse, even if it was buried deep underground, it would still be very clear. But that area actually doesn't exist at all. I've already sniffed it a little, but I still couldn't find it. But the only thing I can be sure of is that there must be a lot of people who died in this battle. Go Buhuan said thoughtfully. He was a little puzzled. But he didn't know that those corpses were all cleaned up by Jun Moxie using the power of earth, and buried dozens of feet deep underground. With the earth as a barrier, not to mention his nose, even a dog's nose wouldn't be able to smell it. Go Buhuan's nose was punched by Zi Jinghong. When he was deep in thought, blood flowed down from his nose, and passed through the corner of his mouth. He unconsciously stuck out his long and thin tongue, rolled it up, and licked it clean. Then, he put it back into his mouth and smacked his lips. Xiao Weicheng's breathing became heavy again. He couldn't bear it anymore, but he still had to turn around. He was afraid that if he continued to look, he really couldn't help but pull out this guy's tongue and throw it out. Chapter 583. The third chapter. Zi Jinghong's eyes, which had finally recovered, became a little dazed again. She felt her stomach churning again. She tried her best not to vomit and said, "Then, what happened?" Such an expert's breathing was actually a little unstable. Even his tone of speaking was a little stuttering. His chest rose and fell, looking a little violent. Then, this subordinate searched along the way, and discovered that in the dense forest, there was actually a path that was carved out purely by a strong sword qi. Wherever the sword qi passed, all the trees were cut off at the roots, and fell neatly on both sides. Even the width of the path was the same. This level of swordsmanship is really shocking, and can even make ghosts and gods weep. Before this subordinate has never seen anyone's sword qi reach such a level. In fact, it's unheard of. Go Buhuan's face was a little frightened. Zi Jinghong and Xiao Weicheng looked at each other, and saw what the other was thinking, Tian Fa's Heaven's Sword. Based on this subordinate's judgment, that shocking sword qi should have been chasing after someone for such a terrifying result. After a few more turns, there was a cliff in front of us. This subordinate went over to take a look, and saw that the soil on it was clear that there had been a landslide. Furthermore, it shouldn't have happened too long ago. It could have happened at the same time as the battle. That shocking sword qi extended to here, but it also stopped abruptly. According to this subordinate's judgment, that landslide was very likely caused by someone. But, the scale of the landslide was too big, and this subordinate doesn't dare to confirm it. But logically speaking, it makes sense. He thought for a while and said, this subordinate originally thought that there might be corpses below, and went through a lot of trouble to move the corpses away to check, but there was nothing below, only a pool of blood. So this subordinate boldly speculated that either the Hermitage brought back all the corpses after the battle, or the Hermitage's entire army was wiped out, and the enemy used a strange method to destroy all the corpses. Judging from the situation at the scene, the second possibility is more likely. Although his guess was not far from the truth, it wasn't far from the truth. His observation was meticulous, and his analysis was clear. As expected, he lived up to his reputation of being an expert in reconnaissance. Anything else? Zi Jinghong's face became gloomy and gloomy. Xiao Weicheng's eyes were also gloomy and even a little panicked. No, no more. Go Buhuan was startled by Zi Jinghong's tone. He had already said it so clearly, what else could there be? If it was someone else investigating, it would definitely not be like this. Why was the leader still not satisfied? But how could he, who had just suffered a brutal beating, dare to make another sound? You've done a good job with the investigation. Go and have a rest. Zi Jinghong waved her hand. Oh. Go Buhuan touched his face and nose, and looked at Zi Jinghong confusedly, which meant, you're just going to hit me like this? Since he had completed the mission well, shouldn't he be rewarded? Get out of here. Zi Jinghong was enraged, and kicked him in the stomach, sending his skinny body flying out like a rubber ball. Bang! There was the sound of something heavy falling on the ground. Then, Go Buhuan shouted, Third Master. I've done my best, and I don't think I've done anything wrong. Why did you hit me? I'm innocent. He was indeed innocent. He had traveled such a long distance and brought back such comprehensive and important information. Not only did he not get rewarded, but he was also beaten up for no reason. Then, someone outside gritted his teeth and said, You fucking deserve a beating. Everyone, let's beat him up. It was the voice of a superior supreme master who was in the room just now. Then, there was the sound of beating drums outside, dense and powerful. Screams could be heard, Why did you hit me? Why? The aggrieved voice pierced through the cold weather. One could imagine a person lying on the ground, surrounded by 7 or 8 people kicking him. In the room, Zi Jinghong sat quietly with a terrible expression. Xiao Weicheng had the same expression. The atmosphere was heavy and depressing. After a long time, Zi Jinghong said in a hoarse voice, Brother Xiao, what do you think is the situation? Xiao Weicheng took a deep breath and said in a creepy voice, Your subordinate's information is detailed, unique, and reasonable. Based on this, I'm afraid that the 29 people, including Hermitage Ning Wuqing, have all been wiped out. How is this possible? His voice was full of horror and surprise. Zi Jinghong raised his head and was lost in thought. How could he not know this? He was just hoping for the possibility and hoped to get approval from Xiao Weicheng, so he asked this question. Unexpectedly, Xiao Weicheng's judgment was exactly the same as his. After a while, he finally said, I think so too. Since ancient times, the 3 holy lands have always been burying the dead. Unless it's an extremely important person who needs to be buried in the Holy Land, there has never been an exception. Although the number of Hermitage's people who died outside these years is very few, there were still a few. Just like the Beast King who attacked the Tianfa forest, there were people who died. At that time, we had enough manpower, but we only buried them on the spot and did not go through the trouble of bringing them back to the Holy Land. Yes. Especially the scene described by Go Buhuan, there must have been people who died at the scene, and I'm afraid there were quite a number of them. Ning Wuqing's remaining manpower may not be enough. Even if there were survivors after the battle, they would only be injured. How would they have the energy to carry the corpses back? It seems that the Hermitage's battle is doomed. Xiao Weicheng took a deep breath. But the only thing I don't understand is that although Venerable Mei has always been hypocritical, she really doesn't look like a bloodthirsty person. Even if she won, or if the Hermitage's power couldn't stop her, she didn't have to be so ruthless. As long as she escaped, how would Ning Wuqing and the rest be able to catch up with her? Zi Jinghong furrowed his brows. He could not figure it out no matter how much he thought about it. Then there's Brother Xiao. Did you notice this sentence? What? Xiao Weicheng raised his head and looked at her. Just now, Go Buhuan said, when we arrived at the mountain pass, we found that there were traces of a fierce battle about 100 feet away from the mountain pass. This sentence is especially puzzling to me. Zi Jinghong furrowed his brows, and pondered hard, how could such a great battle happen so far away from the mountain pass? Ning Wuqing is astute, he is not inferior to you or me. But why would he give up the mountain pass, which is the best place for an ambush, and jump out instead? To fight head-on at such a far place. Isn't it courting death to fight head-on? If this is useful, why don't we combine our forces and kill him head-on? The reason why we made this interlocking ambush plan, isn't it to be wary of Venerable Mei's extraordinary qin gong? But Ning Wuqing jumped out just like that. This is the biggest suspicious point. It's really puzzling. Xiao Weiqing's eyes were evasive, and he felt a little guilty. However, he knew why Ning Wuqing had jumped out to die. Because all of this could very well have been the result of him hinting Ning Wuqing to do so, if he didn't hint that Venerable Mei had been seriously injured. Even if Ning Wuqing was given 10,000 guts, he wouldn't be so unwise to jump out like that, Brother Xiao. Zi Jinghong looked at him with a deep gaze. Xiao Weiqing realized that he was lost in thought. Only then did he realize that Zi Jinghong was looking at him strangely, as if she had seen through him. He couldn't help but smile awkwardly. Brother Zi, what's the matter? Zi Jinghong smiled weirdly, but didn't continue to dwell on this issue. With Zi Jinghong's shrewdness, she could naturally see that Xiao Weiqing's expression wasn't right. Perhaps this guy had a lot to do with the annihilation of Ning Wuqing's troops. Xiao Weiqing was the first wave of ambushes, and he returned in failure. Moreover, he lost more than half of his men. With such a huge loss, how could Xiao Weiqing not be angry? When they passed by Ning Wuqing's ambush spot, how could Ning Wuqing not ask about the situation of the battle? Xiao Weiqing was exaggerating, that was also true. If it was him, he would also be unwilling to let his own family suffer such a huge loss without any gains, while the other two families were unscathed. Of course, they might not be able to share blessings, but if there were difficulties, then it would be better to face them together. However, this fellow was too despicable. He must have sent the 29 experts of the elusive world of immortals to the gates of hell with just a few simple words. It seemed that if he were to coexist with this fellow in the future, he would have to be careful. Otherwise, who knew when he would betray him? There's another thing I don't understand. It's Venerable Mei's attack. You and I both know that although Venerable Mei is ruthless to other enemies, he has always kept the big picture in mind. Towards the three holy lands who participated in the war for seizing the heavens, especially those superior supreme experts, he has always been merciful and never killed them. But this time, he was abnormally on a killing spree, not sparing any of the people from the elusive world of immortals. There must be something fishy about this. But if there's a reason, what reason would cause him to be so heavy-handed? So much so that he doesn't even care about the serious consequences of the war for seizing the heavens? Zi Jinghong pondered and asked her second question. It should be Ning Wuqing and the rest who angered Venerable Mei, and did something that Venerable Mei would definitely not be able to tolerate. This can be expected. Xiao Weiqing heaved a sigh of relief. If that was the case, then the responsibility might not be on him. This can indeed be expected. But, how can he anger her? With her cultivation, how would she be easily angered? That day, when Hermitage joined forces with the 10 experts to kill her, she did not have any killing intent. Could it be? Zi Jinghong's eyes lit up. Could it be June Moxie? Chapter 584. However, if someone were to hurt June Moxie in front of her, Venerable Mei would definitely fight to the death. But this kind of injury, I'm afraid it has to be more serious. Xiao Weiqing said with a hint of mockery. A light injury would not trigger such a terrifying killing intent from Venerable Mei. She even used Tian Fa's heaven-punishing sword, so it must be a serious injury. He might even kill. Yes, it's highly possible. If that's the case, Venerable Mei's rage can be explained. In this kind of enraged situation, she would definitely not care about the consequences. But, even if Venerable Mei has this kind of strength to kill 29 experts from the elusive land of immortals in one fell swoop, what about her body? Zi Jinghong's eyes flashed with a cold smile. She can't possibly be unscathed, right? Then, wouldn't she become a god? Of course, that's impossible. Killing 9 superior supremes and 20 supreme supremes without a single injury. Brother Z, this must be a joke. Moreover, this joke is not funny at all. Xiao Weiqing laughed and said, I reckon that Venerable Mei would at most be left with half of his life. That would be good enough. Yes, that makes sense. Right now, Venerable Mei must have suffered a serious injury. Moreover, after such a violent outburst, the mystical qi in his body would definitely be emptied. Without a period of recovery, he would not be able to return to his original state. Zi Jinghong's eyes shone brightly and said, This is our best chance. Xiao Weiqing also became excited and said, Agreed. Now is the time when Venerable Mei is most likely to kill her. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, we must grasp it. So, we can only hope that Jun Moxie is not dead, ha ha ha. Zi Jinghong laughed sinisterly. Why should we hope that Jun Moxie isn't dead? Nothing is more sorrowful than a dead heart. Her beloved has passed away. She must be hurt both physically and mentally. At the very least, her fighting spirit will be greatly reduced. Wouldn't that make it easier for us to get what we want? Xiao Weiqing was puzzled. If Jun Moxie is really dead, will Mei Xuan still choose this path? Zi Jinghong snorted. Yes. Sure enough. However, with Venerable Mei around, unless Jun Moxie dies on the spot, Venerable Mei will save him even if he has to risk his life. Xiao Weiqing laughed. From my analysis, Jun Moxie is definitely not dead. How do you know that? It was Zi Jinghong's turn to be confused. If Jun Moxie is really dead, even if Mei Xuan doesn't destroy the corpses to vent her anger, she wouldn't be so kind as to help Hermitage dispose of the corpses, right? Xiao Weiqing smiled confidently and said, if our guess of Hermitage's group being wiped out is true, then the one who disposed of the corpses must be Venerable Mei. It must be some kind of secret technique from Tian Fa to be able to do it so discreetly. Brother Z, do you agree with this? Yes. That's right. Ha ha ha. Zi Jinghong laughed. But Brother Z, if Venerable Mei is seriously injured now, his whereabouts must be even more secretive. If we stay here, it's a little too. What if they slip away? What should we do? Xiao Weiqing said worriedly, you must know that such an opportunity is too rare. It would be a pity if we let it go. Brother Xiao, don't worry. Brother Xiao, do you know why I deviated from the main road and chose to wait here? Zi Jinghong smiled mysteriously. I haven't thought about this, but please enlighten me, Brother Z. Not far from here, there's a mountain range, it's very famous. As long as Jun Moxie is here, even if he has to take a detour of a few hundred miles, he will definitely come to this mountain range. And we will go there to stop Jun Moxie and Venerable Mei. On this point, there was absolutely no way that the plan would be flawless. I can guarantee it. Zi Jinghong smiled proudly and said darkly, as long as they come, that place will be Venerable Mei's burial place. Mountain range? What kind of mountain range is it, to have such a huge charm? Xiao Weiqing was even more curious. Could it be that a mountain range could attract Jun Moxie and Venerable Mei like honey attracts bees? What kind of logic was that? Tian Guanlin. In Zi Jinghong's eyes, he could not help but reveal a hint of seriousness, and even a hint of respect. Tian Guanlin is the place where the god of war of the Tianxiang Empire, the general in white, Jun Wuhui, died, which is also the place where his bones are buried. It's also the burial place of Jun Wuhui's most trusted 8 white generals. That day, Jun Wuhui was ambushed, and the 8 white generals risked their lives to protect him. One by one, they died. Although Jun Wuhui was severely injured in the first attack, when he died, he was the last to die. This is the White Guard. General in White's White Guard. Xiao Weiqing's eyes flashed with admiration, sharing life and death, sharing glory and splendor. White Guard, blood cloak evil spirit, righteousness piercing through the rainbow, blood soaking the heavens, who can compare to him? So, it's here. In his voice, there was a hint of longing, and even more of a sigh. That's right. After Jun Wuhui died, he was buried here. This is the place where the famous general fought his last battle, and also the place where he left the most traces, and also the place where he died. When Jun Wuhui was plotted against and killed, his 3,000 personal guards had all retired to live here, and guarded Jun Wuhui's grave. How could Jun Moxie not come here? Zi Jinghong sighed solemnly, 3,000 guards. Brother Shao, these people, any one of them would have been pillars of the army back then. As long as they returned to Tianxiang, they might not be rich, but at least they would have enough to eat and wear. But as a collective, they willingly gave up everything. They would rather guard a lifeless graveyard in this remote and desolate mountain. They guarded this graveyard for 10 years without any complaints or regrets. Moreover, they even brought their families here, and settled down here. Jun Wuhui's charisma. How great was it? Was it worth them to make such a choice? After saying that, Zi Jinghong squinted her eyes, as if she was also fascinated, reminiscing about the legendary general in white. What a good man. Xiao Weiqing cheered and said, hearing you say that, this old man can't help but feel respect for this general in white. Such a person is indeed worthy of our admiration. Zi Jinghong sighed, Jun Wuhui is at best a junior to us. But he is invincible, and invincible. In the Tianxiang Empire, and even in the entire continent, he is a legendary figure. Unfortunately, no matter how wonderful a legend is, there will come a day when he falls. It's just that it's a pity that he falls, and it's not worth it. He paused and said, although I live far away from the world, there are still legends of Jun Wuhui in the illusory ocean of blood. This person's Xian Qi cultivation is not that great, but he is persevering, calm, wise, and resourceful. He is generous to his subordinates, and loves his soldiers as if they were his own children. He is kind to his people, and he is decisive in his actions. He is loyal, courageous, and unyielding. He is righteous and forthright. He is a legend that only appears once in 1,000 years. Even the generals who fought against him admired him from the bottom of their hearts. In fact, they respected him from the bottom of their hearts. Since ancient times, there has never been a commander who was able to achieve what Jun Wuhui has done. Xiao Weiqing also let out a deep sigh and said, that's right, Jun Wuhui, if you mention him, I also quite admire him. But it's a pity that such a hero died tragically in the hands of the Silver Blizzard City's Shao family. It's such a pity. Zi Jinghong snorted and said, speaking of this matter, even this old man almost wanted to kill his way into the Silver Blizzard City. The Shao family's actions are too despicable, vicious, and shameless. It's such a pity for this legendary commander. If that's the case, then wouldn't it be disrespectful for us to deal with his son and daughter-in-law in front of the general in white's grave? After all, such a soldier, such a commander, is rare in the world. Why don't we think about it? Xiao Weiqing's eyes flashed, and he said seriously, why don't we stop them at the foot of the mountain? After all, there are still Jun Wuhui's 3,000 guards at Tianguanlin. If they see us dealing with the general in white's son, how can they not fight to the death? Although these people are not skilled in martial arts, and their Xian Qi is weak, they are still a force. Moreover, they are all brave men. It would be a pity to kill them all. It's even more against the heavens. Venerable Mei is not Jun Moxie's daughter-in-law yet. Moreover, we have never thought of killing Jun Moxie. After all, the consequences of killing Jun Moxie are too severe. Zi Jinghong stood up, paced back and forth, and rubbed his brows. As for the 3,000 guards, never mind, let's kill them after they leave the mountain. For the sake of the general in white, let's give them a chance to pay their respects. He let out a long sigh and murmured, Jun Wuhui. Jun Wuhui. To be able to do something like this in this world is truly unprecedented. He is indeed a legend of his generation. The entire continent has been talking about his achievements. Even our 3 holy lands have developed a sense of respect for a mere junior like him. He shook his head, smiled, and said self-deprecatingly, I, Zi Jinghong, rarely admire anyone in my life. I didn't expect that I would admire an ordinary general from Xianqi so much. Xiao Weicheng also heaved a sigh of relief. To him, dealing with Mei Xuan in front of Jun Wu Hui's grave was nothing. The key was that the 3,000 guards were good men worthy of everyone's respect. He really did not want to kill such a person. Although Zi Jinghong and Xiao Weicheng swore to kill Mei Xuan, they were not too bad. It was just that they were more scheming, and each had their own plans and standpoints. Humans still had their own humanity. Even the three Holy Lands saw the war for seizing the heavens as their own responsibility. Although they were a little unreasonable, they had protected the continent for 10,000 years. Their merits and demerits were hard to judge. But no matter what, the merits were greater than the demerits. Brother Z, since that's the case, have you gone to Tianguanlin? Xiao Weicheng asked. Chapter 585. Zi Jinghong said, incredible, twice in a row. She had a strange expression on her face. She was silent for a long time before she slowly said, Jun Wu Hui's grave is clean. His sword is placed on the incense burner table. It's spotless. His grave is not even a cenotaph, it's actually a marshal's tent. There are tables and chairs, benches, a marshal's platform, and military orders. Everything is clean. Jun Wu Hui's statue is sitting in the tent. There are military camps all around. Everything is set up according to the most standard military settings. There are 3,000 guards, and there are people on duty every day, patrolling back and forth. Everything is the same as it was when Jun Wu Hui was alive. The security is tight, and everyone needs a password to enter and exit. There are no exceptions. All the soldiers on duty are dressed in neat military uniforms. They are solemn and meticulous. Moreover, they are still wearing the same uniforms from 10 years ago. It's as if they are not guarding a grave, but are still guarding the marshal's tent. These people are really sentimental. Brother Xiao, it's possible if it's just one person, and it wouldn't be surprising if it's 10 or 100. But if the entire Imperial Guard Legion is like this, then only a legendary general can be like a legendary soldier. He took a deep breath. If Jun Wu Hui was still alive, even I would want to make friends with him. Xiao Weicheng was fascinated. He couldn't help but say, tomorrow, I also want to go up the mountain to pay my respects to this marshal in white. Zi Jinghong chuckled and said, no matter how beautiful a legend is, there will be a day when it comes to an end. Only the divine army Jun Wu Hui's military spirit will not be extinguished. Brother Xiao, it's reasonable for you to pay your respects to him. Such a famous marshal, although he's a junior, is worthy of Brother Xiao's salute. Xiao Weicheng's face was solemn as he nodded his head. Heroes were respected by the universe. It was not about their background or their xianqi. The gloomy weather that had lasted for several days finally cleared up. The sun shone brightly on the thousands of mountains, illuminating the world. For a moment, there seemed to be a subtle feeling that the world was filled with white jade sculptures. Moreover, if one accidentally touched the sunlight and didn't circulate his qi to resist it, he would feel a slight stinging pain in his eyes. The weather was freezing. On the road, two figures glided on the road with unusual agility. The two figures seemed to be completely weightless as they skimmed over the thick layer of snow. They were as fast as a gust of wind and lightning, as if they didn't use any strength at all. Even the legendary lightness skill, traceless snow steps, might not be able to achieve such a situation. Only the even more terrifying myth realm, floating through the air, might be able to compare. However, the two of them didn't look like it, the two of them weren't even using lightness skill. Both of their feet were tied with a strange object. If they were using lightness skill, they definitely wouldn't be carrying such a cumbersome object. They were holding a thin branch in their hands and poking it to the east and to the west. However, relying on this set of strange objects, the two of them became more and more relaxed. Moreover, their speed was getting faster and faster. They were like two wisps of faint green smoke, skimming over the boundless snowfield like two white meteors streaking across the earth. When they got closer, they could see that the two of them were actually a young man and a young woman. The young man was tall and handsome, and the young woman was charming and charming. Her face was like a flower, and her grace was peerless. What a golden boy and jade girl, a pair of celestial beauties. The white clouds in the sky leisurely passed by. The thousands of mountains and valleys on the ground were covered with pure white snow. The two of them had black hair and white clothes fluttering in the wind. This picture was actually so beautiful. Ahead was the mountain pass. A fork in the road. There were two forks in the road, separated by a mountain in the middle. One of the roads had a huge signboard, Tian Guan Lin. Tears of Heaven. Every word was written with iron and silver hooks, swords drawn and ready to fight. But every word was written to the end, and it gave people a feeling of a hero at the end of his road, a cold and desolate feeling. It was just a few simple words, but when Jun Moxie saw it from afar, an inexplicable feeling of desolation welled up in his heart, and it was out of control. Jun Moxie's high-speed moving figure stopped abruptly, and stopped in front of the stone tablet. Suddenly, a strange feeling welled up in him, and he said softly, "So it's here. This is Tian Guan Lin. What's wrong?" While he was in a daze, Mei Shuyan overtook him with a swoosh, then turned around and asked curiously. The current Mei Shuyan was no longer an amateur. She could still control the way of skiing as she wished, or else, she would not have been able to pull off the difficult technique of turning around just now. Facing Mei Shuyan's question, Jun Moxie acted as if he did not hear it, and did not reply. He only focused on the 7 big words, and his eyes seemed to be in a daze. His heart was filled with all sorts of emotions, and the memories that had long been fused together, at this moment, were extremely clear. Tian Guan Lin. Tears of Heaven. Mei Shuyan mumbled, and suddenly a light bulb went off in her head, and she opened her eyes wide in shock. This place is your father, that uncle, father. Mei Shuyan suddenly lost her sense of propriety, and said it awkwardly. If based on age and status, she really could not open her mouth to call Jun Moxie's father uncle. It's my father. At this moment, Jun Moxie did not pay attention to those unimportant things, and this sentence just naturally slipped out of his mouth. His expression was solemn, and he slowly said, "This is the place where he fought his last battle. And also the place of eternal rest." Jun Moxie looked at the 7 big words, and his heart was in turmoil. It seemed like, no matter if it was the previous Mo Xia or himself, this was the first time they came here. And this fact made Jun Moxie want to dig out that guy's soul and give it a good beating. In the past, he only knew that this kid was a prodigal, but now it seemed that this kid was even more unfilial. No matter how far the distance was, as a son, he should at least come to pay his respects twice a year, right? This guy actually did not come even once in the past 10 years. Let's go this way. Jun Moxie's voice was low, and he looked in the direction of Tian Guan Lin. Mei Shuyan softly replied with a and did not say anything else. She just followed behind Jun Moxie silently. The two of them did not use their extraordinary body techniques, nor did they use the sleigh to ski. They just stepped on the white snow, and slowly walked forward. Their thoughts seemed to have become extremely distant and faintly discernible at this moment. Although this road was covered in snow, it could still be seen that this place was usually cleaned by a lot of people. Everywhere was clean, even the flowers and plants on the mountain rocks on both sides of the road were neatly trimmed. Although there were only bare branches without any occupation, the traces of trimming could be seen with a single glance. On this road, there might be people from the illusory blood sea intercepting us. Jun Moxie clasped his hands behind his back, and walked forward leisurely, as if he was talking about something irrelevant. His voice was faintly discernible. If there is really someone intercepting us, Jun Moxie, hereby swear that in this lifetime, no matter the cost, I will kill every last one of the 3 holy lands. I will destroy their 10,000 years of foundation completely by my hands. Jun Moxie's tone was indifferent, but Mei Xueyan could hear an unshakable determination in his voice. I don't think it will be to that extent. The three Holy Lands have always been prejudiced against our Tian Fa forest. Moreover, their actions have been quite perverse and absurd. But, I don't think that they would do such inhumane and despicable things, Mei Xueyan said softly. She naturally understood Jun Moxie's thoughts. Intercepting a father's son in front of his grave. This was a completely heartless thing. Even the most vicious and evil person would have to think twice before doing such a thing. Not only was it heartless, but it was also immoral. This was a huge taboo in the world. I hope so. Then their ancestors would really burn incense. The reverse scale of a dragon, touching it means death. If my reverse scale is touched, all 10 races will not be spared, Jun Moxie said lightly, but his eyes flashed with sharpness. Mei Xueyan looked at his back, not knowing whether to laugh or cry, and followed after him. In this world, who would dare to say that the three Holy Lands did not deal with me because they were sensible? Their ancestors would burn incense, and all 10 races would not be spared. Who do you think you are? This tone was so arrogant that there was no limit to it. It was even worse than killing 9 clans, but Mei Xueyan believed that Jun Moxie would definitely do it. Even if he did not have the ability to do it now, he would definitely be able to do it in the future. She had this confidence. The two of them sped up again, and rushed forward like 2 white meteors. The road in front of them became wider and wider. After another turn, the two of them suddenly stopped at the same time, and stared blankly in front of them. In the distance, in such cold weather, a group of nearly 100 burly men were shoveling snow on the road with all their might. Each of their bodies was steaming hot, and they were sweating profusely. Looking from afar, the rising steam actually looked like fog. None of these burly men had a high level of Xian Qi cultivation. At most, they were at the early stage of Silver Xian. In such cold weather, they were actually in such a state. They must have been shoveling snow for a long time. The people in front shoveled snow, and piled it into a pile. Then, someone pushed a cart over, and shoveled the pile of snow onto the cart, and quickly transported it away. Then, someone immediately took a special big broom and swept the ground, until the original color of the mountain rocks and soil was revealed. Everyone did not speak, and only focused on their work, as if shoveling snow was a sacred task. Behind them, one could clearly see that the road was very clean, and there was not even a single bit of snow. Even the ground had been scraped off. The road meandered into the distance. In such a remote place, even if there were people hurrying along, there would be very few of them. But these people had to spend so much effort to clear such a wide and clean road. Jun Moxie suddenly felt a little sour in his nose. He had already acutely understood the abnormality of this place. Chapter 586. Jun Moxie and Mei Xueyan approached slowly. The man on the other side had obviously noticed them. With a command, 9 of the men put on their clothes. Although they were old and tattered, they were still neatly dressed. One man walked in front, while the other 8 followed behind him in 2 rows. Their bodies were straight, and their steps were neat and tidy. It was actually the standard military reception etiquette. Only these 9 people walked out. The others continued to work as if they did not see them. They did not even bat an eye. When these 9 people came closer, the leader was a bearded man of nearly 40 years of age. There was an eye-catching knife scar on his face. He straightened his body and cupped his fists. He asked, "Young master, young miss, may I ask if the 2 of you are here to pay respects to Marshal Jun?" "Yes." Jun Moxie said amiably. "Uncle, please lead the way." Jun Moxie understood. These people were probably his father's old subordinates. In order to guard Jun Wuhui's grave, they had been stationed here for more than 10 years. Just this persistence alone made Jun Moxie feel that the other party deserved to be called uncle. If he couldn't be such a good man, then no one else would be able to be such a good man. Although he had memories from his previous life, and was also a person who looked down on the world, although his achievements in this life were also great, but facing this most sincere friendship, Jun Moxie felt that he really respected them from the bottom of his heart. Jun Moxie's words of uncle aroused the suspicions of the man opposite him. These men who had been through hundreds of battles, had experienced many vicissitudes of life. They had their own wisdom. The man turned his head suspiciously and exchanged a few glances with his companions. When he turned back, his expression was obviously much more relaxed. However, he still asked meticulously, "Young master, you are exaggerating. Wang Meng is only a rough man. I do not deserve to be called uncle. May I ask, which family are you from?" "I am Jun Moxie." Jun Moxie took a deep breath. At this moment, saying his own name, Jun Moxie felt an inexplicable sourness in his heart. It was as if at this moment, his entire soul had completely melted into this original body. "Jun Moxie, the son of Jun Wu Hui. You said you are Jun Moxie. Is it really you?" The man named Wang Meng's expression changed greatly. He blurted out and took 2 steps back. The way he looked at Jun Moxie changed instantly. Became unusually complicated. There was respect due to love for the house, anger due to Jun Moxie not living up to expectations. There was also happiness, and there was even an inexplicable sense of encouragement. "Wang Meng," this tough man's lips actually trembled a little. "So young master has arrived. But third young master, did you bring your family's keepsake?" Jun Moxie's expression changed. He reached out to untie a jade pendant from his waist and handed it over with both hands. It was a green jade pendant, lush and green. There was a small symbol of a blood orchid on it. Below the blood orchid, there was a golden seal character, Jun. On the back of the jade pendant, there were 8 small words, "A dignified person, forever Moxie." This was the unique symbol of the Jun family. And this jade pendant was the symbol of Jun Moxie's identity. Holding the Jun family's bloodline jade pendant, the curly-bearded man, Wang Meng, suddenly trembled. Tears quickly flowed out of his tiger eyes. "It has been a long time. Jun. We have been away from this character for 10 years. It has been a whole 10 years since we last met." Although Jun Zhantian's body was strong and healthy, he was still old. In these years, he had only come here twice. Jun Wui's legs were disabled. He could not walk properly. Moreover, he felt guilty and could not face his late brother. In these years, it was basically the housekeeper, old Pang, who came here a few times a year, the Jun family's jade pendant, the jade pendant of a direct descendant. The person in front of him was the only son of the Supreme Commander, the only bloodline. Suddenly, Wang Meng fell to his knees with tears streaming down his face. In a hoarse and trembling voice, he said, "Wang Meng pays his respects to third young master. The heavens have taken pity on me. Third young master has finally grown up, and has become sensible. If the Supreme Commander knows of this, he will definitely smile in the underworld." It was as if Jun Moxie's visit to pay his respects to his biological father was a very rare event. "Uncle Wang Meng, please don't do this. How can Moxie bear the responsibility?" Jun Moxie was shocked to see this. He hurriedly helped him up. His heart was filled with mixed feelings. The rims of his eyes were somewhat red. All these years, Jun Moxie's reputation as a debauchee had shaken the world. His skills had shocked the 4 corners of the world. At best, this was something that happened recently. Some people in remote places still thought that this third young master Jun was a good-for-nothing who only knew how to eat and wait to die. Just by coming to pay his respects, he was able to make these old subordinates of his father so excited and happy. Especially the last few words, "and has become sensible," made Jun Moxie's heart feel a little sour. Such a simple feeling. It was a matter of course for a son to pay respects to his father. Now that he had come, it was just a small act of filial piety. Yet, it was able to make this outsider so excited that he even praised him for being sensible. Their expectations of him were so low. From this, it could be seen how much of a bastard Jun Moxie was. Standing up with tears streaming down his face, Wang Meng turned around and shouted, "Everyone come over. Great news! The third young master Jun has come to pay a visit to the Supreme Commander. It's the Supreme Commander's third young master. Everyone come over quickly. Quickly come and welcome the third young master." Boom! The crowd instantly became excited. Everyone even threw down their shovels and ran over with their backs bare. Everyone's face was full of excitement. Among them, a skinny man who was slightly older cried as he ran. He cried out, "The third young master has finally come. I'm sure that the Supreme Commander has been looking forward to this day and night. Today, the heavens have taken pity on him. Finally, his own flesh and blood have come to pay respects. If the Supreme Commander knows about this in the underworld, one of his wishes will be fulfilled." Even someone as calm and steady as Jun Moxie could not help but have his eyes turn red today. This kind of happiness that came from the bottom of his heart made Jun Moxie feel even more sad and ashamed. This large group of men surrounded Jun Moxie and Mei Shuyan tightly. Everyone's face was filled with the most sincere and heartfelt joy. After the initial excitement, they immediately started talking. The third young master Jun is indeed the Supreme Commander's son. Look at his eyes, they are as calm and wise as the Supreme Commander. No, I think it's his mouth that is the most similar. It's just slightly pursed, and there's a sense of determination and cruelty. Every time the Supreme Commander gives an order, his lips are pursed like this. Once when I received the order, I secretly looked up and was shocked. What's with your eyes? Look at the third young master's eyebrows. When the Supreme Commander was fighting Zhao Jianhun, when he gave the order to attack, the Supreme Commander's eyebrows were raised like this. At that time, I felt that we would definitely win. What do you think? I said that we would definitely win and defeat the enemy. The third young master's eyebrows are the most similar to the Supreme Commander. As the crowd talked, their voices gradually became softer. They just stared at Jun Moxie's face and muttered, so similar to the Supreme Commander. Slowly, their eyes became hazy with tears. Suddenly, a Chinese character sobbed bitterly. He cried until his liver and intestines were cut into pieces. He said intermittently, "I, Li Debao, seem to see Marshall again. This face. I see it in my dreams every day. Today, I finally see the real person again. Third young master, why didn't you come earlier? Marshall, we have been waiting for you for so long." As he cried, all the men tightly shut their lips. The muscles on their faces twitched as they tried their best to stop their tears from flowing down. However, they were unable to do so. Their tightly shut lips slowly opened, and tears began to fall from their eyes. This face that they had been dreaming of for 10 years, unfortunately, this person was not the Supreme Commander. He was the Supreme Commander's son. The Supreme Commander, we will never see him again. Tears fell like rain. Such an iron-blooded man, heartbroken and sorrowful. Who said that a man doesn't cry easily? It's only when he's sad. Now that it's time for him to be sad, he cried and showed his true colors. That's his true feelings. This kind of indescribable sadness even infected Mei Shuyan. She couldn't help but turn her face away, feeling sad. This was the first time Jun Moxie had seen tears in his life. He comforted the crowd for a long time before they finally stopped crying. They wiped their faces in embarrassment, feeling a little embarrassed. As if he was deliberately changing the topic, Wang Meng wiped his face and forced a smile. He said, "Third young master, this lady is." As he spoke, the crowd finally noticed that there was an outstanding beauty in front of them. Moreover, she came together with the third young master. They couldn't help but become excited. Could it be, uncles, this lady is my wife. Her surname is Mei. Hee hee. I brought her here today for my father to see. Does he like her? All of you are my father's brothers and sisters. Can this nephew's daughter-in-law enter your eyes? Jun Mo Xia smiled as he introduced her to the others. Really? Wang Meng jumped 3 feet high and laughed. Such a virtuous and beautiful daughter-in-law. If the marshal knew about it, he would be so happy. What's there to be dissatisfied with? The crowd was so excited that their faces were red. They looked at Mei Xuan as if they were looking at a treasure. They nodded in satisfaction and grinned from ear to ear. This scene was even happier than when their own sons found a wife. Venerable Mei, who had always been graceful and elegant, felt extremely bashful under the gazes of these men. She lowered her head, and felt as if her heart was thumping wildly. Quick, quick, quick. Brothers, get out of the way. I'll quickly bring the 3rd young master and young madam to greet the marshal. The marshal must be anxious from waiting. It's been 10 years. He hasn't seen his son for a whole 10 years. Today, his son and daughter-in-law have come together. This is a joyous occasion. Wang Meng was so excited that his face was red. He raised his arms and shouted. Although Jun Wuhui had been dead for 10 years, when these guards mentioned Jun Wuhui, they still used the word greet, and not pay their respects. Chapter 587. That's right, lest Marshal gets anxious. Brother Wang Meng, you have to take good care of 3rd young master and young madam. Hurry up, if Marshal gets angry, all of us will beat you up. Only then did they disperse into 2 neat rows. They watched as Jun Moxie and Mei Xuan walked past them. In their eyes, it was as if they were looking at their own sons and nephews. Jun Moxie greeted them along the way. When he was far away, he turned around and saw that the hundreds of burly men were still looking at his back. They did not move at all, as if they were looking at their most respected and worshipped, the marshal in white. Jun Moxie's heart ached again. He took a deep breath, trying to control his emotions. But his nose felt sour, and he almost couldn't hold back his tears. Wang Meng followed beside him, his face full of joy, as if he had done something great. Along the way, he introduced every blade of grass and every tree to Jun Moxie. The knife scar on his face seemed to be trembling with joy. 3rd young master, look here. When Marshal led his troops to Tianguanling, he dismounted from his horse for the first time. There are still a few rocks here. At that time, the marshal was standing on the biggest rock, looking back to see the troops of our brothers marching over majestically. At that time, I was only a small captain of the marshal's guards and happened to be by the marshal's side, so I saw it clearly. I still remember the marshal's words at that time. He said, "This is a good place to set up camp." When Wang Meng said the last sentence, his voice suddenly became calm, as if he was imitating Jun Wuhui's tone. The expression on his face suddenly became serious. Jun Mo Xia looked in the direction he was pointing at and saw a large stone. It was squarish, with many edges and corners that had become somewhat smooth. These guards must have polished it every day for the past 10 years. To think that this ordinary stone had unknowingly completed the process of polishing it, when Marshal came here that year, he seemed to have a lot on his mind. On that stone wall over there, Marshal stood there for a long time. His face was dark, and he did not say a word. After a long time, he composed a poem. After that, my brothers carved it on the stone wall. Wang Meng's eyes reddened as he said, "I, Wang Meng, am a crude man. Although I don't understand the meaning of the poem, I still recite it every day when I pass by this place." Jun Moxie slowly walked up to the front of the stone wall. He saw that there were 4 lines of words carved on it, and the handwriting was exactly the same as the 7 words at the foot of the mountain. "The great flag of beacon smoke is unfurled." Thousands of horses and thousands of soldiers surged over. Since when did the battlefield become familiar with swords and soldiers? From now on, men will not restrain their grief. So it turns out that father. He had long been tired of killing. Jun Moxie looked on quietly, and could not help but think of the story of Jun Wuhui that his third uncle, Jun Wui, had told him. When will the battlefield be filled with swords and soldiers? From now on, men will not restrain their grief. These two lines expressed Jun Wuhui, the god of war of this generation, the general in white, and his deep hatred for war, as well as his blessings for his brothers. The terrain became steeper and steeper as they walked, and gradually, they were on the path to the mountain. After walking for another half a mile, the path on the mountainside became even narrower, and could only allow 4 or 5 people to walk side by side. On one side, there was a cliff that looked like it had been cut by a knife, piercing the blue sky. On the other side, there was a cliff that was not very high, and the snow at the bottom of the cliff was as smooth as a mirror. It actually looked like a plain. There is a big lake below here, but it is currently covered by snow, so we can't see it now. If it is summer, the water will be sparkling, and it will be very beautiful. Wang Meng introduced with some pride. Back then, after we were stationed here for 3 days, the marshal came here one day and looked at the lake in a daze for a long time. He used his sword to carve a few lines of poetry on the stone wall over there. Jun Moxie had already noticed that on the cliff in front of him, there was a relatively smooth area. There were a few lines of words carved on it with the tip of a sword. The words were round and full, and naturally had a majestic feel to it. I hate that this body does not belong to me. Who is the master of the fields in my dreams? Why should I disarm my armor in the mountains and rivers, and leisurely float on a small boat on the 5 lakes? After reading these 4 lines of poetry, it was as if he could see a general dressed in the robes of 100 battles, looking at the leisurely lake in front of him in a daze. He was obviously already planning on what to do after his retirement. In fact, he was even looking forward to the peaceful and happy life after his retirement. Jun Moxie took a deep breath of cold air. Suddenly, a wave of anger welled up in his heart. It turns out that father had long been tired of the life on the battlefield, and had already planned to retire. He would not be a threat to the imperial power, but the Tianxiang Empire was still afraid that he would be too powerful, and would not hesitate to let the wolf into the house, and destroy his own pillars, using despicable means to harm him. Jun Moxie suddenly felt an inexplicable anger. In front of us is the marshal's tent. Wang Meng led Jun Moxie all the way, and actually passed through 7 or 8 sentry checks. When the sentry veterans heard that the marshal's son was here to pay his respects, they were all extremely excited. Finally, they reached the hillside. This was the real Tian Guanling. What appeared in front of Jun Moxie's eyes was a majestic and huge military camp. The wind on the ridge was urgent. Jun Wuhui's marshal's flag stood tall, fluttering in the wind. The bright red flag was like a flaming cloud, dancing in the air. Faintly, there was an aura of fighting against the universe, and dominating the world. Surrounding the commander's tent were 8 military camps. They formed a triangular formation, guarding each other like stars surrounding the moon. The central commander's tent was tightly protected. Squads of soldiers in bright armor patrolled back and forth with their bodies straight and determined. Their expressions were serious and solemn, and they were meticulous. Just as one group passed by, another group immediately patrolled over. The 8 patrolling groups went back and forth, and there was not the slightest gap between them. At this time, a person strode out of the marshal's tent. He was dressed in a general's uniform, with thick eyebrows and round eyes. He was more than 7 feet tall, and his body was unusually strong. Wherever he stood, he looked like an iron tower. The general stared at him and shouted, "Wang Meng! I let you lead the troops to clear the snow on the road, and you actually slacked off and returned? What punishment do you deserve?" Wang Meng was shocked. He stood up straight and saluted, and said loudly, "General Wu, it's the marshal's 3rd son and young madam who came to pay their respects to the marshal. I am just doing my duty as a leader, and did not intentionally neglect military duties." The marshal's 3rd son. Jun Moxie. General Wu's expression changed. His eyes turned to look at Jun Moxie, and his gaze became sharper. When Jun Moxie was at home, he already knew that Woo Yongjun, the #1 general of his father's guards, was a brave and courageous general. Now that he saw Woo Yongjun's imposing manner, he praised him in his heart. Just as he was about to step forward and salute, Woo Yongjun suddenly glared at him and said angrily, "You're Jun Moxie. You bastard, why are you only here now? What have you been doing for the past few years, you bastard?" The first thing he did was to reprimand him, followed by a string of curses. He actually changed the way he addressed him 3 times. Then, the eyes of Woo Yongjun, a general who had been through hundreds of battles, suddenly reddened. He tried his best to open his eyes and control his emotions, fearing that a drop of tear would fall. However, his voice still became hoarse as he scolded, "You bastard. As the only flesh and blood of the Grand Marshal, you actually didn't come to pay your respects for 10 whole years. Jun Moxie, you bastard, do you know, the Marshal is alone here, and how lonely he is. How much he misses all of you. You, disappointing." At the end of his words, he couldn't help but sob. Jun Moxie didn't say a word. He was speechless when faced with the scolding of the person in front of him. Woo Yongjun's voice was very loud, and when he shouted, many people came out from the surrounding tents. When they heard that the Marshal's son had come, they immediately swarmed over, and the scene became a little chaotic. "You little bastard, why aren't you going to see your father? Why are you still dawdling here, you bastard?" Woo Yongjun roared like a bolt from the blue. However, after shouting, he couldn't help but rub his eyes. When he removed his hands, his eyes were already red. His throat seemed to be blocked by something, and he grunted a few times like a bellows. His mouth opened a few times, and it looked like he was about to cry. Suddenly, he separated the crowd, covered his face, and ran into a big tent. Then, an extremely suppressed sound came from inside, as if a wild bull was forcefully covered in a quilt and let out a dull and painful whimper. "Marshal, that son of yours finally came to see you. I scolded that brat, but he still came to see you. He looks exactly like you, so handsome, and he even brought a beautiful wife with him. You'll definitely like her." Under the urging of the crowd, Jun Moxie and Mei Shuyan stepped into the Marshal's tent step by step. Everyone stood neatly outside the Marshal's tent. Their faces were filled with joy and sorrow, and their gratified smiles were filled with tears. They silently watched the silent Marshal's tent, leaving the space inside for Jun Moxie and Mei Shuyan. Then, they faced the Marshal's tent and knelt down neatly. Everyone said in a low voice, "Congratulations, Marshal. You have a successor. God bless the Jun family, you will not be alone." Their faces were filled with sincerity, as if they were saying these 16 words of blessing with all their heart, soul, and spirit. The moment Jun Moxie entered, he immediately felt a wave of shock that came from the bottom of his heart. Inside the Marshal's tent, it was completely a well-organized wartime command center. There were 8 chairs on both sides, and behind the chairs, there were bright unsheathed swords and sabers. Right in front, there was a desk. On top of the desk, there was an ivory bucket. Inside, there were 10 military orders arranged neatly. On the desk, there was a record book, and on the other side, there was a long sword that shone with a cold light. Chapter 588. Everything was exactly the same as the real person. But upon closer inspection, the person in the middle was actually a statue carved out of white jade, vivid and lifelike. Even the tiniest creases on the robes were carved with great detail. Even the lines on the skin on the hands and face were vivid and lifelike. One could see how much effort the person who carved this statue had put in. At first glance, it was as if this statue had a soul. Behind him, on the left, there were 8 large words, "The Unregretful Hero." On the right, there were also 8 large words, "The Only Monarch Reigns Under the Heavens." Above it was a white jade board with 4 large words carved on it, "Rise and Fall of the Order. General in White, Jun Woo Hui." How impressive! Mei Shuiyan unconsciously looked at Jun Wuhui's statue with a look of admiration and said in a low voice, "Mo Xia, you look exactly the same as your father." "My father? He's also your father." Jun Moxie looked at it for a long time, lost in thought. Then he said in a low voice, "Shuiyan, come here and kowtow to your father. You will be the daughter-in-law of the Jun family for the rest of your life, there is no way you can run away. Father will be very happy to see your son and daughter-in-law at the same time." Mei Shuiyan's face turned red and she nodded shyly. Then she knelt down respectfully next to Jun Moxie. Jun Moxie respectfully lit 3 joss sticks and said in a low voice, "Father, it has been 10 years since we last met. Your son and daughter-in-law have only come to visit you today. I hope that you will know of this in the afterlife and be able to relax your frown. Your great enmity, I will definitely wash it with snow. Whether it is the Blizzard Silver City or the Tianxiang Empire, anyone who has harmed you must pay the heaviest price. This is your son, Jun Moxie's oath. Father shall bear witness. Heaven and earth shall bear witness." The oath was sonorous and resonant. At this moment, Jun Moxie's heart was unusually heavy, and he slowly kowtowed. Be it in his previous life or this life, although he had always been arrogant and unruly, towards this general in white, Jun Moxie, he respected him from the bottom of his heart. Just from the countless legends, he already had a deep understanding of him. In addition to the fusion of their souls, at this moment, Jun Moxie could clearly feel that Jun Wuhui was his father. Ever since he came to this world, he had never bent his knees. But at this moment, he was willing. Such a hero, even if he wasn't her father, he was worthy of her sincere worship. What's more, there was always a kinship that was hard to cut off. Although his soul came from another world, this body was indeed Jun Wuhui's flesh and blood. There was a cycle of reincarnation. At most, he had just coincidentally reincarnated with his memories. If he didn't have his memories, would his heart still resist? That was an unbelievable thing. Just as Jun Moxie and Mei Shuiyan knelt down, there was a sudden gust of wind in Tianguanlin. Countless clouds gathered in the sky, and the snow on the ground was swept up into the air, covering the sky. From the sky to the ground, it was all hazy. All the flags unfurled at the same time. What was even more strange was that the originally raging north wind had strangely turned into a south wind at this moment. The direction in which the flags unfurled was actually towards the north. That was the direction of the Tianxiang capital. "General." Everyone outside suddenly knelt down in unison. Their eyes were filled with tears, and they shouted crazily towards the sky, as though they were going to tear their throats, "General Spirit, return! General Spirit, return!" They kowtowed on the ground, and tears flowed out like a fountain. The wind whistled in the sky, whimpering and whimpering, as though it was responding to everyone. After a long time, Jun Moxie and Mei Shuiyan walked out slowly. Opposite them, everyone's gaze was focused on them, especially on their knees and their foreheads. Then, everyone smiled happily. On Jun Moxie's knees, there was an eye-catching stain, and on his forehead, there was a light ash. So was Mei Shuiyan. This was the scheming part of these soldiers. They were afraid that someone would use the excuse of not kowtowing to insult their general, so they sprinkled some light ash on the ground. Then, this group of bold yet respectable and cute men surrounded them warmly. "Mo Xia. You're here, Mo Xia. Ha, you've grown up, and you've found yourself a wife. We don't have much to offer, so we'll give you a present each. Please don't mind, Mo Xia. You have to come more often, General is looking forward to seeing you. Didn't you see that General was so happy just now? He was so happy." This man couldn't help but sob at the end of his speech. "Why are you crying?" Third young master brought his wife to visit General. "It's a joyous occasion." "You fucking only know how to cry like a girl, are you a man or not?" Although this man was reprimanding others, his own eyes were already red. I. Sob sob sob. I'm happy. Sob. I'm really happy. General finally has a successor, and I've seen my wife today. I think I'll be able to hold my grandson soon, sob. I'm happy for General. Happy. A man started bawling, sitting on the ground, and banging his head on the ground. He sobbed, I miss the days when I followed General. Seeing that third young master looks exactly like General, I'm happy and sad, just a simple sentence, and it caused everyone to fall silent. Tears and snot flowed down their faces. Their eyes reminisced about the past, with a sense of vicissitudes of life, as though they had returned to the days when they followed Jun Wuhui and fought on the battlefield. Jun Moxie stayed in Tianguanling for a day and a night, and only left on the third day in the wee hours of the morning. The enthusiasm of this group of guards simply made even a cold-hearted person like Jun Moxie feel warm and fuzzy inside. Jun Moxie could clearly feel that these people were treating him well from the bottom of their hearts. They treated him as if he was their most beloved nephew, practically wishing that they could dig out their hearts and give them to him. This was definitely not something that could be faked. How could it be faked when they were truly giving their hearts out? The two of them slowly walked down the mountain. Behind them, countless people followed and watched them leave. On everyone's face, there were traces of tears, but there were also gratified smiles. Until they were far away, there were still shouts coming from behind. Third young master. Come back more when you're free. This is also your home. We'll wait for you to come back, bring your son. General will miss you too. Mei Shuiyan wiped her reddened eyes, and with a nasal voice, she said, who said that only us mystical beasts are pure and sincere, these people are the same. They're so cute, so sincere. Your father is amazing, he actually has so many good brothers who are loyal to him through life and death. Jun Moxie took a deep breath and sighed, yes, it's not easy to achieve this, I don't think I can do it. In his heart, he thought of his conversation with Wu Yongjun and the rest last night. Originally, Tianguanling was a place that all soldiers fought for. But ever since General set up camp here, no matter which country's generals, they would only take a detour. Even if they came occasionally, they would only come to pay their respects, no one dared to offend us. We will never leave this place again, we will always protect General. If we leave, General will be lonely. General is used to the days of thousands of soldiers and horses, once it's quiet, we're afraid he won't be able to take it. When Jun Moxie brought up the idea of migrating and settling down for their descendants, Wu Yongjun and the rest said, not only will we stay with General forever, even my son and grandson will definitely stay here. The Wu Hui army flag is our greatest pride. With this flag, everyone will feel like they have a backbone. Only then will there be meaning to life. We can be self-sufficient, we farm and enjoy ourselves here, we don't need much money at all. Third young master, you should bring the money with you and do things that are useful to the Jun family. When Jun Moxie wanted to leave some money, Wu Yongjun and the rest firmly rejected him. You must come often. You must cure madam, third young master. The Jun family will depend on you in the future. You must not let General down. Father is a hero, son is a good man, you must not tarnish General's reputation. As Jun Moxie thought about it, he unknowingly walked far away. Mei Shuiyan knew that he was not feeling well, so she followed him silently, not saying a word, to give him time to adjust his emotions. After a long time, Jun Moxie quietly looked back. At this time, he was already very far away from Tianguanling, but with his eyesight, he could still see that there were people standing there for a long time, waving at him. I will definitely be back. Definitely. I won't let you down for what you've done. I will definitely not let you down. Goodbye. Jun Moxie secretly swore in his heart. When he turned back, his expression was obviously much more relaxed. He and Mei Shuiyan looked at each other, both of them had the same thought, and understood at the same time. Exerting strength under their feet, they once again turned into two white meteors, instantly flying across the vast land, disappearing at the corner of the mountain pass. Behind them, Tianguanling was still majestic and solemn and dignified. As they moved forward, Jun Moxie suddenly frowned. At the same time, Mei Shuoyan also looked at him. Both of them instantly understood each other's gaze. In front, there was a strong enemy ambush. And there were many of them. Here, just 10 miles away from Tianguanlin, was a basin that was neither too big nor too small, and was surrounded by mountains. Both of them stood still at the same time, and it was still Mei Shuoyan who spoke first, coldly saying, "Are you friends from the three holy lands? Since you're here, show yourselves. There's really no point in hiding." Ha ha ha. A clear long laugh, a purple ray flashed, and Zi Jingheng leisurely appeared. Beside him was Xiao Weicheng. Sounds of clothes fluttering could be heard all around, and 40 to 50 people appeared at the same time, surrounding the two of them in the middle. When he was in Tianguanling, Jun Moxie had heard that there were two people in weird robes who went up to pay their respects. From their description, Jun Moxie immediately thought of Zi Jingheng and Xiao Weicheng. Hence, seeing the two of them now, he was not surprised. In fact, if he did not meet the two of them here, it would be a miracle instead. The other party did not make a move on Tianguanling, which made the anger in Jun Moxie's heart subside a little. But now that he saw them, it was a different story. Chapter 589. Xiao Weicheng. It's you again. You still haven't given up. Mei Shuoyan's eyes flashed, and her face instantly became covered with a layer of frost. She coldly said, "Sect Master Xiao, you've started a war again. You didn't even hesitate to join hands with the illusory ocean of blood. It seems that you're determined to defeat me today. I wonder if you've discussed how to split the spoils after the battle." Xiao Weicheng's face was solemn, and he said lightly, "Venerable Mei has made a mistake. Today's meeting, the Great Golden City was invited, and the person in charge here is not me, but someone else." Zi Jingheng smiled elegantly, took 2 steps forward, and said with a smile, "Venerable Mei, perhaps there's some misunderstanding. The 3 holy lands, 1 ferocious lands, and the 4 lands have always been equally famous. Perhaps we don't have comrades, but we do have comrades. Tian Fa's contribution to the war for seizing the heavens is obvious to all. We only have respect for Venerable Mei, and nothing else. This time, we're just here to exchange pointers with Venerable Mei, and to improve our skills in preparation for the war for seizing the heavens. There's no need to be so hostile. Zi Jingheng, I've underestimated you previously. When you said this, your face didn't even turn red. I really have to admit that I'm impressed." Mei Shuoyan's elegant face was almost filled with a smile. She had seen people who were thick-skinned, but it was the first time she had seen someone like Zi Jingheng who could lie with his eyes wide open. Moreover, he could say it in such a dignified and proper manner. Venerable Mei's words are a little too much. If I wanted to deal with you, there are many good places to choose. Why did you have to choose such an ordinary place? Zi Jingheng scoffed, and said, "For example, Tianguanling. Ha! Isn't that the best place for an ambush? There were still 3,000 guards and their families up there. If we were to make a move there, Venerable Mei would definitely have scruples. It would be a great opportunity for us to ambush them. But I would rather give up than make a move on Tianguanlin. I feel that I have already done all I can for you, Venerable Mei." Jun Moxie took a step forward solemnly. Lengleng said, "Zi Jingheng, Jun Moxie, am rather grateful that you did not choose to do it in Tianguanling. Although it is a taboo to kill the descendants of others in front of their tombs, I still want to thank you. However, Zi Jingheng, there is one thing you have to understand. No matter where you intercept, your opponent is your opponent. This will never change. You did not make a move on Tianguanlin, it only means that you still have a conscience, and you still have some humanity. But it does not mean that you will really show mercy today." He smiled at Lengleng, and said, "Zi Jingheng, you can't hide it from others. Ask yourself honestly, even at this moment, even at this place, will you really show mercy? We have already shed all pretenses of cordiality, why are you still playing these hypocritical games? Let's fight it out. Zi Jinghong's expression changed, and she stared at Jun Moxie sternly, and said in a deep voice, Jun Moxie, although I respect your father, it does not mean that I can tolerate your impudence. You are not qualified to say such things to me. I feel the same way. Jun Moxie smiled suavely, and said, actually, I really don't want to say such nonsense to you, but you went up the mountain to pay respects to my father, and left 10,000 silvers for my brothers. It shows that although you are despicable, shameless, vicious, and dirty, you still have some conscience. That's why I'm saying this to you, since you don't know what's good for you, why should I lower myself to talk nonsense to you? To put it bluntly, in my eyes, not only do the 3 holy lands not have the right, but you are also useless. Also, Zi Jinghong, you have to understand something. Jun Moxie stretched out a finger, shook it lightly, and laughed mockingly. In the illusory blood sea, you are only the 3rd lord, not the sovereign, so next time when you address yourself, you have to say, this 3rd lord, and never, this sovereign. This will cause misunderstandings. I am in a good mood today, so I am reminding you, in case you get yourself into trouble because of this one day. I am a good person, am I not? Why aren't you thanking me? Zi Jinghong's face turned red, and her eyes flashed fiercely. The sarcasm in Jun Moxie's words was extremely sharp. Presumptuous. Jun Moxie, who do you think you are? How dare you speak to Sovereign Zi like this? Don't think that you are so great just because you have a backer. Quickly kneel down and kowtow to Sovereign, and admit your mistake. We can spare your little life. Otherwise, I will send you to see your dead father, and let you and your father reunite in the netherworld. The one who spoke was a skinny bald man, and his voice was a little sharp. There were some bruises on his face. It was Go Buhuan, who had reported to Zi Jinghong that day. As he spoke, he stared fiercely at Jun Moxie, and there was a hint of greed in his eyes. He looked at Jun Moxie, and then looked at Mei Xuan. His slender tongue unconsciously stuck out, and he licked his lips. When he finished, he turned to Zi Jinghong and cupped his fists. 3rd sovereign, I have a presumptuous request, and I hope that 3rd sovereign will agree to it. Go Buhuan, what presumptuous request do you have? Let me hear it. Zi Jinghong frowned. She was rather disgusted with this Go Buhuan. Although she and Jun Moxie were enemies, there was no need to bring up a hero, right? That was blasphemy. Especially when she saw his blood-red slender tongue, she immediately felt a little nauseous. 3rd sovereign, you also know that I have a little hobby. Cough cough, I am greedy for good food. If this venerable Mei is killed by us later, I naturally don't dare to have extravagant hopes for the Xian Dan, but I hope that 3rd sovereign can bestow the corpse to me. With such soft skin and tender meat, it must be delicious. Go Buhuan said seriously. When he said that, everyone's face turned strange. Zi Jinghong suddenly felt a wave of discomfort in his stomach. He almost couldn't help but open his mouth and spit on Venerable Mei's face. But then he thought about it again. This excuse was a great opportunity to attack Venerable Mei. So he forced himself to hold it in. He even squeezed out a smile and said, this request is fine. If we can really kill Venerable Mei, and you've done a great job, then I'll let you enjoy her corpse. A man-eating beast will eventually be eaten by humans, this is indeed karma. Both of them did not purposely lower their voices, so everyone heard it clearly. Mei Xuan did not understand what was going on at first, but when she saw Go Buhuan's drooling face, she was so angry that her pretty face turned pale. Although she was a mystical beast, she had always been clean. Since she was born, she had only eaten spiritual fruits and spiritual herbs. When had she ever eaten human flesh? Now that she heard Zi Jinghong's slander, she was about to explode. Jun Moxie, on the other hand, was also fuming with anger, and he rolled his eyes. Fuck. Where did this half-human, half-ghost trash come from? Jun Moxie looked at Go Buhuan and pretended to be surprised. Who didn't tighten his belt? Why did you show yourself? Look at your bald head, it's so fucking awesome. There's even a hoop in the middle, no wonder your mouth is full of filth. Go Buhuan was stunned. He did not understand the classic curse from Earth that Jun Moxie had casually mentioned, and after pondering for a few times, he finally understood. Some people behind him who were quick-witted couldn't help but burst out laughing. It had to be said that Jun Moxie's metaphor just now was too vivid. Go Buhuan had a slender figure, and his head was round and shiny, without a single strand of hair. Above his ears, there were some sparse hair, but the quality of his hair was not good, and it was more or less curly. The people from the two holy lands had interacted with Go Buhuan for a long time, and they didn't think much of him. But today, after hearing what Jun Moxie said, the people here, except for Mei Shuyan, all looked like men. The more they looked at him, the more they felt that he was similar. Many of them tried to restrain themselves, and finally, they coughed and laughed. Only Mei Shuyan looked at Jun Moxie suspiciously, and then looked at the group of wretched experts opposite her. She didn't know what Jun Moxie was talking about, and what these people were laughing about. Go Buhuan couldn't help but blush, and his eyes almost popped out of their sockets. He roared, "Jun Moxie! How dare you scold me?" "Scold you? When did I scold you? You're such a strange person." Jun Moxie's face was full of surprise, and he touched his head, as if he didn't understand what was going on, and said in a strange voice, "Then tell me, how did I scold you? How did I scold you? Did I say a single dirty word? What kind of person are you? This world is full of money and goods, how can there be a place to be scolded?" Go Buhuan flew into a rage, and his nostrils were almost emitting smoke. He roared, "You still dare to deny that you scolded me? You actually dare to deny it in front of so many people? Jun Moxie! You shameless villain, I won't forgive you. I'm confused. I'm really confused." Jun Moxie's face was full of innocence and confusion. Even if you want to kill someone, you should at least have a reason, right? Even if it's a groundless accusation, there should at least be some evidence, right? And you're saying that I scolded you just like that? You're really crazy. I've seen many people looking for trouble, and some looking for death, but this is the first time I've seen someone looking for trouble like you. You're still spouting nonsense. Just now you obviously scolded me as a chicken. Go Buhuan jumped and roared, but he suddenly stopped, and his mouth was agape, and his face was full of embarrassment. What chicken? Why did I scold you as a chicken? Ridiculous. Jun Moxie's face was full of curiosity, and he said, "Please don't say half of what you're saying, okay? If you do that, you'll really die. I'm going to kill you." Ah 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 ah. Go Buhuan roared, and he pounced forward with his claws and fangs bared. He was extremely furious, and he almost fell for this despicable brat's trick just now. It was really dangerous, and if he had spat again, he would have really scolded himself, but even so, a large group of people behind him were already rolling on the floor laughing. Everyone here was a man, who didn't know what that chicken was. Chapter 590. If Go Buhuan did not go in by himself, then he would be attacked by a group of people. This guy had already been beaten up quite a few times in the past few days. He was in a depressed mood, especially when he did not know how he had offended everyone. I didn't want to eat human flesh in the first place either. Wasn't that too much of a push? Would I starve to death? But later, I felt that human flesh tasted really special and delicious, so who wouldn't eat delicious food? Damn it, everyone has their own preferences, you guys can't control my taste. Jun Moxie's body flashed and he ran. He defended himself as he ran. I'm not scolding you. I'm telling the truth. If you don't believe me, go back and look at yourself in the mirror. It really looks like it. Didn't you see that I almost opened my pants just now to see if there was nothing down there? If my thing suddenly pops out and spouts nonsense, I won't be able to face anyone. Luckily, it's not mine. Go Buhuan was so angry that he shouted loudly. He was so angry that he couldn't restrain his anger. The thin hair on his head curled and floated in the air. It could be considered as bristling with anger, although it was a little thinner and curled up. It really looks like it. Go Buhuan was jumping and jumping as he chased after Jun Moxie like a big monkey. Jun Moxie was running away in a panic. Suddenly, he turned around and shouted in surprise, "Wow! The hair on your head is floating. It looks even more like it. Can you not look like it?" At this moment, Go Buhuan was obviously mad with anger. He felt as if his lungs were about to explode. He roared and roared, he shouted and screamed. He did not care about anything else. He crossed his palms and a gust of strong wind rolled up like a hurricane. It rushed towards Jun Moxie with a force that could topple mountains and overturn the seas. Jun Moxie cried out in panic. Then, his body flashed, and he suddenly disappeared. Go Buhuan's eyes were bloodshot as he bombarded madly. He was indeed a master of the supreme martial artist level. He only managed to cause a large area of the surrounding snowy land to roll up along with the snowflakes. The snowflakes filled the sky and the soil swirled in the air. The momentum was terrifying. At this moment, he suddenly felt a pain on his head. He was shocked and rushed forward. When he turned around, he realized that Jun Moxie was actually behind him. Seeing Jun Moxie turn around, Jun Moxie shouted, "Oh my God," and ran away. Go Buhuan was not willing to let him go. He roared and chased after him. With one chasing and one running, it was as if they had returned to the original spot in the middle of the confrontation. Jun Moxie suddenly stopped running. Instead, he retreated and rushed forward. In the blink of an eye, he was already in front of Go Buhuan. His movement technique was extremely fast. Go Buhuan was rushing forward with all his strength, but Jun Moxie suddenly appeared in front of him. He was shocked and almost cried out in surprise. However, he was overjoyed. He thought to himself, "You brat, you are courting death." He crossed his palms and slashed down with a ferocious smile. At this moment, he suddenly felt his legs go soft. It was as if there was a trap below him and he felt a sense of danger. Instantly, he was shocked and rushed upwards. His feet had just left the ground when Jun Moxie had already gone straight for his lower body. Bang! 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 4 consecutive kicks landed on his calf joints. Taking advantage of the momentum, Jun Moxie used the tip of his right foot to trip on Go Buhuan's ankle. Go Buhuan let out a loud cry and fell straight forward like a wooden stake. He didn't stop rushing forward. The snowy ground was especially slippery. It was as if he was sitting on a slide towards his own camp. Ha 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 ha. Suddenly, a fellow couldn't help but hold his stomach and laughed. He laughed so hard that tears came out. His right hand held his stomach and his left hand trembled as he pointed at Go Buhuan, who was sliding towards him at high speed. He laughed so hard that he almost couldn't breathe. When everyone saw this, they couldn't help but laugh too. A few of them who didn't have a good relationship with Go Buhuan even squatted on the ground and used their hands to slap the ground. Their bodies were convulsing, and they didn't have the demeanor of a master in the world. Even leaders like Zi Jinghong and Xiao Weicheng couldn't help but laugh when they saw this. Their shoulders trembled and their bodies twitched. They lost their dignified and steady demeanor, because the scene in front of them was really too funny. Go Buhuan was seen sliding along the surface of the snow, trying his best to raise his head. On his smooth and shiny head, a circle of fine fluffy hair floated neatly behind him. In the middle of his smooth and round head, there was actually an additional red fingerprint. His scalp was originally very white. At this moment, the fingerprint was even more eye-catching. It was like a cinnabar mole on his scalp. When everyone thought of Jun Moxie's metaphor, they were overjoyed. Now, it's more like it. It turned out that Jun Moxie had ruthlessly jabbed his finger on the top of his head at some point in time. Moreover, the position was exceptionally narrow. This finger was really good. June Moxie was also shocked when he saw this. It was an accident, absolutely an accident. The heavens can bear witness that young Master June really did not do it on purpose this time. He had originally wanted to use a little more force to kill this fellow with a single finger, but who knew that this fellow's instincts were so sharp? The moment his head felt something, he had already pounced forward with all his might, causing young Master June to not even have the time to exert any force, only leaving behind a rather clear and ambiguous red finger mark. If this fingerprint was on other people's head, it wouldn't be a big deal. It was just a fingerprint, what could it be? After all, most people had hair. But now it was on Go Buhuan's bald head. It was meaningful, and there was a lot of room for imagination. The laughter in the basin shook the sky. Those who didn't know would never think that there was a life and death fight here. Instead, they would think that there was a party here. What a happy laughter. It must be a wonderful show. Go Buhuan, who did not know what was going on, jumped up from the snowy ground with a flushed face. He thought that everyone was laughing at him for falling into such a sorry state. His face and neck were still red as he argued loudly, "What are you laughing at? Victory and defeat are common in soldiers. I haven't lost yet. I just accidentally fell. June Moxie. If you have the guts, let's fight for another 300 rounds." As he said this, his slender tongue slipped out habitually, and licked up and down. The laughter around him became even louder at this moment. Everyone was staring at his bald head, sizing it up carefully with great interest. There were even a few people who unconsciously spread their legs and glanced at their own crotches, then laughed even more wretchedly. In the distance, there was another figure coming at a high speed. He was about to pass by this place, but he was attracted by the laughter. This person was wearing a snow-white robe, and it was no different from the color of snow. His figure was swift, and in a flash, he disappeared without a trace. In terms of speed, he might not be slower than June Moxie's yin-yang escape technique. Moreover, his movement was strange, and he appeared and disappeared like a ghost. He seemed to be on the left, but in fact, he was on the right. He looked at the front, and looked at the back. It was somewhat similar to June Moxie's Qing Gong. That person's face was covered with a white veil, and his face couldn't be seen clearly. But judging from the color of his hair, he should be at least 40 or 50 years old. Hearing this sudden laughter, that person quickly turned around, and stopped in the air for less than a tenth of a blink of time. Then, he disappeared. When he reappeared in the next moment, he had already traversed a distance of several tens of feet, and silently hid behind a large rock. It was as if a large piece of light snowflake had silently stuck onto that big rock, and had even fused with it. There were 50 to 60 experts from the 3 holy lands below, and any one of them was not an ordinary person. But even with so many experts, not a single one of them had noticed that there was actually an additional observer in this barren mountain range. Although the people from the 3 holy lands did not notice, it did not mean that no one else had noticed. At least 2 people had keenly sensed that something was amiss, June Moxie and Mei Xuan. After June Moxie had been surrounded by the allied forces of the 2 holy lands, he had long activated the Hongjun Pagoda's divine sense. How powerful and dense was the Hongjun Pagoda's divine sense? It could be said that there was nothing that they couldn't see. Not to mention a living person, even if it was a snowflake that had just fallen, or a cockroach that had just run across the ground, they could still sense it clearly. This was already beyond the scope of a human's ability, and was not the fault of a person's strength. But Mei Xuan was already a venerable, and her divine sense was naturally more sensitive than a human's. Moreover, in front of a powerful enemy, she had already focused all her attention. Although that person's Qing Gong was outstanding, and his Xian cultivation was profound, it was not higher than Mei Xuan's. So, how could he escape from Mei Xuan's all-out search? The moment they discovered this person, June Moxie and Mei Xuan looked at each other at the same time, and gave each other a meaningful glance. Then, they secretly communicated with each other using telepathy. Someone is coming. This person's strength is very high. I don't know if he is a friend or foe. This was June Moxie. As expected, the person's strength is not bad. His qing gong is even better, and he may not be weaker than you and me. At this moment, he is observing, and has not shown himself. His intentions are not obvious, and it is difficult to guess. Or, it could be an ambush by the three holy lands. Mei Shuyan thought carefully. I don't think so. If it was really an ambush by the three holy lands, how could they only send one person? Moreover, this person chose to hide himself, and it seems like, this is going to be interesting. A strange smile appeared in June Moxie's eyes. In that case, even if that person is not a friend, he may not be an enemy either. Mei Shuyan's eyes brightened. We'll act according to the situation. This person's strength is not weak, and his qing gong is even more amazing. If it comes to a critical moment, we might as well drag this guy into the muddy water. You should know that in this world, there are not many people who have this kind of qing gong. June Moxie's smile was very evil, and Mei Shuyan could not help but roll her eyes at him. Behind the stone in the distance, the person who came later quietly poked his head out, and looked down. Then, his eyes widened, and his mouth opened into a circle through the veil. Then, he carefully retracted his head, and a fine layer of cold sweat had already seeped out of his forehead. He felt that his mind was in a trance, and he almost fainted. What the hell? It was actually a group of experts from the three holy lands. Moreover, there were so many people lined up to train, motherfucker. Could it be that they want to ambush me here? Who did I offend? Why are all the people from the great golden city looking for me like crazy? After they found me, there was a big fight. Everyone seemed to have an irreconcilable hatred towards me, as if I had killed my father and snatched my wife away from me. Chapter 591. Even if you want my life, you should at least let me know the reason, right? Just like that, I was pulled out without any reason, and then I was repeatedly hunted down. Every day, there were a few scares. I had no choice but to run into this remote mountain in this snowy weather, and I actually met so many of them here. Is it easy for me? Who the hell did I offend? Not only the Supreme Golden City, but even the illusory Blood Sea is here, and there are so many of them. There are at least 40 of them. Is it necessary? Then, is the one leading them Zi Jingheng? At this moment, the white-robed man cursed in his heart. Damn it. Aren't they overestimating me? More than 40 people were sent out at once, and the lowest was a supreme-level expert. There are so many above supreme-level experts. Even if I am the supreme assassin, I can't handle so many people. What is this? Are these experts all cabbages in the three holy lands? They are just throwing them out like they don't cost anything. I have already met more than 100 of them during my escape. If not for the fact that I have made a breakthrough recently, and that I am good at escaping, I am afraid I would already be lying on the ground counting the worms. His heart was filled with indignation, but he didn't dare to show it on his face. He didn't even dare to take a deep breath. He was extremely vexed and wanted to slap himself a few times. Chu Chi Hun, Chu Chi Hun. In any case, you're the king of assassins of your generation. You're a person who has seen the world, yet you're still acting like a child with curiosity. What does it have to do with you whether people like to laugh or cry here? You just had to come and take a look. Alright, this is going to be lively. As the saying goes, it is easy to come in, but difficult to leave. This is equivalent to setting yourself here. Lying on the ground now is not flying in the air. As long as you move a little, you will be discovered by the people below. Just now, he did not notice because he was laughing there. Now that the laughter had stopped and his spiritual sense had recovered, he would be discovered immediately if he moved a little. As for what would happen after he was discovered, he only felt a bitter taste in his mouth. Is there a need to say it? With so many experts surrounding and intercepting him, even if his abilities were doubled, it would still be of no use. Wouldn't he be easily swallowed by them like pickled vegetables? This white-robed man was the Xian continent's black pot king of this generation. Wrong, it should be the king of assassins of this generation, the supreme assassin Chu Chihuan. It could be said that this supreme assassin was having a bad year recently. After he went into seclusion, there were still legends about him in the pugilistic world, and they had been greatly upgraded. In the past, he was at most a supreme assassin, and it seemed like he had not really killed any supreme assassins. But now, he was a real supreme assassin, and he had killed more than one person. What an illustrious name. As the saying goes, although I am no longer in the martial arts world, the martial arts world is still talking about me. However, almost no one knew that this supreme killer's fame was all because he was a scapegoat for others. He could be said to be the supreme scapegoat, or even the supreme scapegoat. Recently, all the good deeds that the evil monarch Jun Moxie had done, as long as there were no clues, were all put under the name of this Chu Chihuan. Whether it was reasonable or not, in any case, Chu Chihuan was muddle-headed and was very happy to be a scapegoat. To be unknowingly a scapegoat to this extent, Chu Chihuan could be considered as the first person in history. Unfortunately, there was no room for explanation for all these scapegoats he had carried. Who would listen to the supreme killer's explanation? Were they retarded? Even if they did not have a brain, or if there was mold growing in their brains, they would not be so unwise. Therefore, Chu Chi-hun was really down on his luck during this period of time. He had just successfully made a breakthrough in his closed-door training for a few years and happily ended his closed-door training. His ambition was soaring as he reappeared in the world, and he was planning to take on a few good business deals. He was even thinking of making a move on a supreme martial artist or something, so that he would be able to live up to his name and boost his prestige. Then, he would see if there was a chance to find a few experts to spar with his new moves. It had to be said that the supreme killer's luck was still very good, because his wishes were quickly realized, although the way they were realized was somewhat different. For example, once he came out, his plan to take on a few jobs directly fell through, because now that his reputation still needed to be revived, it was directly like the sun in the sky, much better than in the past. And to move, a supreme master, it seemed that there were already a few supreme masters under his name. It was simply a dream fulfilled, and it was achieved inexplicably. This was not the end, because he still had another wish, but this wish did not need to be realized by himself, because very soon there would be many experts looking for him to learn from. Moreover, it was the kind of life or death kind of learning from each other, wave after wave. Such intensive learning from each other made the supreme killer complain incessantly. Of course, the supreme killer did not know the reason for all this glory at all. Chu Chihuan never thought that once he came out of seclusion and reappeared in the world, he would be directly targeted, and then a few supreme masters came to his door. After a big battle, Chu Chihuan was outnumbered, and he fled. He thought that this matter was over, and it was okay to suffer some losses carelessly, since they were from the Supreme Golden City. I am a lone killer, I can't afford to offend them. Who knew that not only was this not the end, it was simply the beginning of a nightmare. Because the learning from each other had been upgraded, the people who came were not fighting one-on-one, but directly bullying him. After a few consecutive battles, Chu Chihuan finally felt that something was wrong. What is going on? At first, he could still use the breakthrough that he had just made to fight with some ease, and he felt that he was getting more and more familiar with it. But then the number of supreme masters increased from 2 to 4. Chu Chihuan had to directly run away, and then it was even more outrageous. They directly sent out 8 supreme masters to surround and intercept him. And then, it was directly not outrageous, it should be called cruel, above supreme masters, and more than one. Oh God, oh Earth, why is my life so bitter? Who did I offend? I didn't fucking dig the graves of the ancestors of the Great Golden City. Chu Chi-hun recited all the wicked things he had done and was puzzled. What did I do to offend these ancestors? Is there a need to be so unforgiving? At this moment, Gobu Huan, who was in the middle of the field, was so angry that he could not catch his breath. He finally understood why everyone was laughing. He turned around and pointed a trembling finger at Jun Mo. It was almost as if someone had stepped on a male duck and strangled its throat. He cried out in a heart-wrenching voice, June Mo Xia, you despicable be asterisk starred. This old man and you are irreconcilable. June Moxie twitched his mouth, definitely irreconcilable, weren't you still lying on your stomach just now? How to stand? Do you think you are standing by straightening your neck? Let me tell you, that is far from it. You are still lacking a chest and a small belly, don't be so self-righteous, this thing of yours will definitely not be of use, even if you have that kind of heart, there must be someone who can tolerate it. He thought for a while, and said in a certain tone, it's definitely not possible to deal with a human, but even if it's against an elephant. I'm afraid it's still not possible, you are really too overbearing. Gobu Huan was so angry that he opened his mouth, and couldn't say a word for a long time, but his long tongue was hanging out like a hanged ghost, swaying in the air, and panting heavily. Zi Jinghong coughed loudly for a few times, and looked at everyone seriously, which meant, don't laugh, you are one of us after all. Only then did everyone manage to stop laughing, and some of them had a very strange look on their faces, trying their best to hold back their laughter. Finally, some of them couldn't hold back their laughter, and burst out laughing again, and hurriedly covered their mouths with their hands, but Zi Jinghong's cold gaze had already shot over to them. These few people hurriedly put on a serious face, and thought, what are you staring at? Are you really that serious? Weren't you also laughing quite happily just now? Only officials are allowed to set fires, but people are not allowed to light lamps. If you don't laugh, even we can't laugh. It's really a serious bureaucratic problem. Turning to June Moxie, Zi Jinghong said seriously, June Moxie, we are enemies, but which one of our people is not a famous person? You have gone too far by humiliating them so wantonly. After all, Gobu Huan is also your senior, right? Too far. Senior? June Moxie opened his mouth wide, let's be clear, who is going too far? He is a senior. How could a senior chase after me like this? Is this what a so-called senior should do? Can't I dodge and fight back? Zi Jinghong, from what you're saying, should I just stand there obediently and let your subordinates kill me? Only then would it not be too much. June Mo Xia, you obviously know that I didn't mean it like that, but you're still trying to distort the truth. Zi Jinghong was furious. This brat was twisting words and forcing logic, and had a sharp tongue. He was really not easy to deal with. How did I distort the truth? Isn't what I said the truth? Then tell me, what do you mean? At the very most, I'm just using a trick to escape. You can't possibly think that I can really beat him, right? June Moxie said righteously, you asked me, who is less than 20 years old, to fight with an old monster who is more than 100 years old, and you say that I am going too far. Zi Jinghong, how can you say that? I really feel sorry for you. It's not a good thing for a person to be too shameless. Can a person really be invincible in the world? Zi Jinghong was so angry that her lungs were about to explode. She roared and said, he attacked you, and it was indeed ungracious of him as a senior, but you humiliated him and made him a laughingstock. What is your intention? How did I humiliate him? June Moxie stood up indignantly, who humiliated him? Zi Jinghong. You have to explain to me about this matter. Can you blame me for looking like this since he already looks like this? I'm just telling the truth. Don't you agree? The one who humiliated him. Well, you have to ask his parents. They are the ones who are bad, you know. How can you blame me? Do you think I am his father? Chapter 592. Zi Jinghong was so angry that he let out a loud roar. Kill! Everyone attack! Surround them and kill them! Zi Jinghong had finally come to a realization. He had finally understood that if he were to continue to argue, he would definitely not be able to win against this brat. In fact, he might even be angered to death by him. If he were to really die from being angered to death by him, that would be too unjust. Following Zi Jinghong's command, the 30 men from the illusory Blood Sea and the 13 men from the Great Golden City charged forward at the same time. The leader of the great golden city, Xiao Weicheng, did not say anything else. Even when everyone was laughing, he still stared at Mei Shuyan fiercely, his eyes filled with hatred. It was because of her, because of this woman, that he had caused the deaths of his 15 old brothers without a trace. 2 of his brothers were killed by Mei Shuyan. Because of his cowardice, he did not dare to accept the challenge, and could only watch as she swaggered away with her lover. This was the biggest humiliation in Xiao Weicheng's life. A great humiliation. A great humiliation that could not be washed away. If he did not kill Mei Shuyan, this humiliation would become a demon in Xiao Weicheng's heart, and it would haunt him for the rest of his life. This point, Xiao Weicheng was very clear and very clear. Therefore, he did not speak. He had been accumulating his strength, and was ready to strike at any time. Kill this evil woman. The encirclement had been formed, and even if Mei Shuyan had wings, she would not be able to escape. Now that Mei Shuyan was killed, it would be the supreme killer Chu Chihuan's turn. He did not know if that killer had been executed yet. It had been almost half a month since he had spread the news. There was news from the outside that he had fought with Chu Chihuan a few times, but he had escaped. This made Xiao Weicheng both angry and hopeful at the same time. He hoped that Chu Chihuan could live for a long time. If he could personally send him on his way, that would be the most pleasing thing to him. Jun Moxie. You little bastard. That bastard who should be struck by lightning. Did you enjoy pranking me just now? Hand over your life to me now. Go Buhuan roared like thunder and pounced towards Jun Moxie with a malevolent expression. He hated Jun Moxie to the core. Even though he knew that Jun Moxie had a powerful master behind him that he could not afford to offend, Go Buhuan did not care about anything else. I must kill this brat. Because he had already trampled on her dignity, mercilessly trampled on her. He had become the biggest joke in the 3 Holy Lands. The reputation that he had built up over the years was destroyed in a single day. But in the end, he could only blame himself for this. If he had not said that he wanted to eat Mei Shuyan's flesh, Jun Moxie would not have made such a vicious prank on him. He could only blame himself for bringing this upon himself. What did others have to do with him? The battle unfolded in an instant. Mei Shuyan held her sword in her hand and pounced forward like a whirlwind, facing the attack head-on. Facing attacks from all directions, she could only take the initiative to attack first. Only then could she avoid the other 3 attacks and reduce the pressure on her. Mei Shuyan's battle experience was extremely rich. She did not have the heart to hold back anymore. She did not even hesitate as she quickly came up with a plan to deal with the enemy. Jun Moxie's body also swayed, as if he wanted to follow Mei Shuyan forward. But in reality, his body seemed to be advancing, but he was actually retreating. Suddenly, he somersaulted and retreated rapidly. Go Buhuan's bald head was ferocious, and the veins on his neck were bulging. He was like a giant tortoise that had just emerged from the water, riding the wind and breaking the waves. In each of his hands, he was holding a strange weapon. If one were to call it a sword, it was curved. If one were to call it a knife, it was curved too much, almost like a barb. The correct way to call it was a hook. Go Buhuan's hook. Jun Moxie's body slid out like a fish, but he did not forget to tease Go Buhuan. Go Buhuan, you really live up to your family name. Your surname is Go, and your tongue is always sticking out like a dog's tongue. Even your head has a groove, and your weapon is a hook. I really admire you. There has never been a dog that is so well-rounded. You are really a rare flower in this world. Go Buhuan did not say a word. He hooked both of his hooks, as if he wanted to break Jun Moxie's body into 2. Jun Moxie let out a loud cry. It was as if he could not dodge in time. His body was hooked by the hooks on his right hand. Go Buhuan was overjoyed. He roared, "Damn you, go to hell," and retracted his hooks with all his might. At the moment when he exerted all his strength, he suddenly realized that what he hooked was only air. He used the wrong amount of strength. At the same time, he felt his legs go soft. Even though Go Buhuan did not know what was going on, he was prepared for it after suffering a loss once. He immediately left his original position and continued to chase after Jun Moxie. Jun Moxie seemed to be in a difficult situation. He covered his head and ran away like a rat. Go Buhuan was hot on his heels. The two of them ran and chased each other. In the blink of an eye, they turned around a big rock and disappeared. Mei Shuyan's sword was like the wind. It was ever-changing. She was able to fend off the 6 experts who were surrounding her. At this moment, the battle was not too big. The rest of the people were watching from the side, ready to help at any time. Zi Jinghong was an astute person. He would not allow his subordinates to be injured or killed. At least, he did not want too many casualties. Therefore, he divided the available manpower into 7 groups. The people from the illusory Blood Sea were divided into 5 groups. The 13 people from the Supreme Golden City were divided into 2 groups. Each group only needed to exchange a few blows. Regardless of the outcome, they would immediately retreat. Then, the second group would come forward. Those who did not participate in the battle were to recover their energy. They were ready to attack at any time. They also had to prevent Mei Shuyan from escaping. He had to admit that this was the best way to deal with Mei Shuyan. Attrition. As long as you can't leave, you will have to stay with us. We have a total of 43 top-notch experts. No matter how profound your Xian Qi is, we will still be able to exhaust you to death. If this continued, the 2 Holy Lands could still afford to drag it out until next year. Because they could rest at any time. However, Mei Shuyan did not have any room to rest. Don't ask for merits. Just don't make mistakes. Everyone, pay attention. You just need to make sure she doesn't stop. But first, ensure your own safety. Zi Jinghong ordered loudly. His face was serious. Although he did not look at Xiao Weicheng, his words were directed at Xiao Weicheng. Currently, the biggest weakness of the Allied forces was Xiao Weicheng's desire for revenge. If Xiao Weicheng really fought with all his might, he would have a chance to injure Mei Shuyan. However, that would definitely trigger her to use her ultimate skill. The range of the ultimate skill that Venerable Mei knew was very wide. Moreover, it was very loud. If that happened, as long as Mei Shuyan was not dead, she would have a chance to escape in the chaos. It was better to wait for the frog to be cooked in warm water. Anyway, I have a lot of patience. Zi Jinghong was very proud of his strategy. But at the same time, it was because of the Hermitage incident that prompted him to make this decision. The 29 experts of the Hermitage were slaughtered by Mei Shuyan. This incident was too shocking for Zi Jinghong. The biggest shock was just now. Because Zi Jinghong suddenly realized that Mei Shuyan did not seem to be injured at all. This was unbelievable. So, Zi Jinghong only asked for no mistakes, not for merits. If Mei Shuyan's cultivation had really reached that kind of earth-shattering level, they should be able to escape in time. Previously, they had made it clear that they were all comrades and this was just a spar. But this kind of encirclement was the best way to see a person's strength. With just a few rounds of observation, Zi Jinghong would be able to accurately judge Mei Shuyan's real strength. The difference would not be too big. At that time, although the encirclement would continue, the strength and threat would increase again. Behind the big rock on the hillside, Chu Chihuan held his breath as he watched. How many times could he see such an intense battle in his life? Chu Chihuan sighed in his heart. Especially that fairy-like beauty, she was actually so terrifying. One should know that it was the joint attack of 2 superior supreme experts and 4 supreme martial artists, but she was not at a disadvantage at all. She even had the upper hand. There was actually such a terrifying woman in the world. And she was so beautiful. Chu Chihuan was shocked. Fighting against the 3 Holy Lands alone. Just this point alone was enough to make Chu Chihuan admire her, because he would never dare to. But this supreme assassin also heaved a sigh of relief in his heart. So these people did not set up an ambush for me. I was scared to death just now. Damn it, I have become a frightened bird these few days. But it was not bad to watch the show. Some movement skills, sword skills, and moves could also be compared with what he had comprehended recently. It would be very beneficial. So this supreme assassin finally felt relieved. Although he still carefully restrained his aura, he focused on this rare battle of experts. The more he watched, the more he learned. The more he watched, the more excited he became, and the more he felt that this trip was not in vain. In the field, Mei Xuan looked as calm and elegant as usual. She was not anxious at all. As for the two Holy Lands, they had already changed their people 3 times. These people were indeed very slippery. They all knew that the sword in Mei Xuan's hand was a divine weapon, so they carefully controlled their own weapons to not come into contact with her sword. The 6 of them changed their positions, circling around Mei Xuan and fighting. Mei Xuan's breath was long. Although she knew what the opponents were planning, she was not anxious. She did not even have the intention to change her tactics. Because she was waiting for Jun Moxie. Jun Moxie must have his reasons for leading Go Buhuan away, so Mei Xuan was waiting. If Jun Moxie did not come back, she would not leave even if these people chased her away. Moreover, it was just a fight now. Mei Xuan's strength had broken through several times recently. With her current strength, it was impossible for her to be surrounded by these people. As long as she wanted to leave, she could do so at any time. At the end of the battle, Mei Xuan's body suddenly turned, and her sword suddenly changed. It became as light as the wind, invisible and traceless. Suddenly, the wind was howling, and suddenly, the wind was gentle. Suddenly, the wind was cold, and suddenly, the autumn wind was sorrowful. When she used this set of mysterious sword skills, it gave people a clear feeling. They could feel the different sword wills in her sword skills. Chapter 593. Another 6 people came out with their swords and joined the battle, passing by the previous group. Everyone's goal was very clear. It was the moment when the person they replaced made the last attack and retreated. Their own attacks would then follow up with a seamless attack, leaving no chance for the enemy to create chaos. The group that had retreated quickly returned to the middle of the crowd. Only then did they begin to breathe slightly more rapidly. Some of them only started to sweat after taking a few breaths. How could they dare to be careless when facing an expert like Mei Xuan? Even though it was just a roaming battle, they were still under great pressure. It wasn't easy at all, because, even if it was a roaming battle, as long as there was a flaw, Mei Xuan would be able to kill them in an instant. At this time, Mei Xuan's marvelous swordplay had come to an end. The 6 people had seen her swordplay once, and although they didn't fully understand it, they had a general idea of it. So, it wasn't too difficult for them to deal with it. But at this moment, Mei Xuan's swordplay changed again. The change was more abrupt, and it became long and dense, like the drizzle of spring rain, continuous and continuous, from the sky to the ground. Everything was hazy. The 6 people fighting with her seemed to feel the warmth of spring in the misty rain of spring, and they felt that their hair was wet. Facing such a strange swordplay, the 6 experts were caught off guard. But they had hundreds of years of fighting experience, and although they were surprised, they didn't panic, and they were able to keep their footing. Even after panicking for a while, they could use their rich experience or barbaric and unreasonable moves to slowly turn the tables. But Mei Xuyan's swordplay changed again. Suddenly, it was like a summer storm had suddenly fallen from the sky, and the raindrops were as big as beans, mixed with the majesty of heaven and earth, whistling down. The 6 people simultaneously felt that they were in a vast ocean. The sky was still densely packed with hemp rod-like raindrops falling from the sky. The 6 of them were in a sorry state. With a few swings of her sword, 3 of them were wounded. One of them even had his shoulder slumped. He had been pierced by Mei Shuyan's sword. If not for the other 5 people's timely assistance, he would have died under Mei Shuyan's sword. Next group. Zi Jinghong's face was frighteningly gloomy. From the beginning until now, Mei Shuyan had already used 5 or 6 sets of magical swordsmanship. Where did she learn these strange things? I've never heard of the Tian Fa Forest's Xian beasts placing so much emphasis on weapons. In these 10,000 years, it seems like the only weapon that has been passed down is the extremely powerful Tian Fa heaven-punishing sword. What was going on? How strange. Another group was swapped out, and this time, the people who were swapped out were in a much more miserable state. The new blood from the 2 holy lands had just arrived, and they thought that they had already grasped about 60 to 70% of Venerable Mei's swordplay. Even if they could not break it, it should not be a problem for them to protect themselves. But the heavens did not follow their wishes, and Mei Shuyan's swordplay actually changed again. This time, it was like the lingering autumn rain, desolate and bleak, and endless vicissitudes of life. It was like the endless rustling of fallen trees, and the entire sky was filled with the desolate autumn wind. In a split second, the world was filled with desolation. Desolation filled the eyes. The 6 people who had just gone up were originally prepared and full of confidence. But the moment they faced the attack, they realized that it was not what they had expected. It was completely different from what they had expected. When experts exchanged blows, the slightest difference could lead to a difference of 1,000 miles. The slightest difference could mean the difference between life and death. Not to mention that there were so many accidents happening now. How could they win? The 6 people only felt that the world was filled with desolation and cold rain, but there was killing intent everywhere. In just an instant, they were actually in a more miserable state than the 6 people who had retreated earlier. This kind of extraordinary swordplay was not only unseen, it was also unheard of. If it was just the ingenuity of the swordplay, it would be easier to deal with. After all, with the rich experience of a supreme martial artist, in addition to the toughness of his body, a normal Tian Xian cultivator might not even be able to hurt him even if he did not move. But the person who was using the sword was Venerable Mei. This was a headache. Not only was his Xian cultivation far above everyone else, the sword he was using was a divine weapon. Wouldn't that be even more tragic? Although the strength of a supreme martial artist was powerful, in the face of Venerable Mei who was wielding a sword, it was no different from tofu. Not to mention that it was a divine weapon, even if it was just a normal sword, they would not dare to use their bodies to fight against it. In addition to such an ingenious and strange swordplay, it was even more difficult to deal with. Zi Jinghong saw that the situation was not good and shouted, "Another group!" Xiao Weiqing roared and led his men to charge forward. At this moment, it had become a situation where 12 people were attacking Mei Shuyan together. Only then did they gradually stabilize their position and not lose instantly. But as the number of people increased, the scope of the battle naturally expanded as well. Zi Jinghong, who was watching from the side, felt more and more uneasy. Facing a total of 12 top-notch experts, the pressure suddenly increased and the burden was more than doubled. Mei Shuyan laughed coldly and did not show any signs of fear. A wave of sword light fell like the autumn rain. Xiao Weiqing roared like thunder and did not retreat. He actually took the lead and charged forward. The sharp sword qi pierced 2 small holes on his body. Although it did not penetrate deeply, blood still flowed out. The great golden city's 3 pearls throne Xiao Weiqing, who could be ranked in the top 3 among the experts from the 2 holy lands, was actually injured in one move. Moreover, it was under the situation where 12 people were working together to deal with one person. Such a battle record was truly shocking. But Xiao Weiqing's injury also came with a corresponding price. In this round of collision, he single-handedly withstood more than half of Mei Shuyan's attack. The pressure that the others had to bear was naturally greatly reduced. In a flash, they were able to escape from the great danger of being suppressed, and the encirclement was also reduced. Mei Shuyan's face was calm and tranquil. Suddenly, she flew up and stepped on the tip of a supreme martial artist's sword. The supreme martial artist's sword was stepped on and he wanted to use this opportunity to attack his enemy. But he was shocked to feel an enormous force coming from the sword. The force was like a bolt of lightning and the force was so strong that it could not be resisted. Boom! The force went through the sword, through his arm, into his meridians, and headed straight for his heart. Wah! He felt as if his heart was hit by a 10,000-pound hammer. His face turned as white as paper and he staggered backward. Before he could stop, he spat out a mouthful of blood and fell to the ground. He had lost all his fighting power. Zi Jingheng leaped up, grabbed the injured expert's body, and quickly retreated. When he looked at the scene once again, the situation had changed drastically. Mei Shuyan stepped on the sword to defeat the enemy. She jumped up and swung her sword. Suddenly, the whole weather seemed to have changed from the deep autumn to the bleak winter. A moment ago, it was still the bleak autumn wind, but now it was the freezing winter. The cold wind blew and snowflakes were falling from thousands of miles away. The sword was like snow and frost, drifting down and flying in the air. The cold wind sounded like the wailing of ghosts. The path of the sword changed again. Xiao Weiqing roared angrily. His white hair was now disheveled and his body was stained with blood. His attacks were the fiercest, but he was also the one who suffered the most injuries. The superb swordsmanship that Mei Shuyan used was from Jun Moxie. In the past few days, Jun Mo Xia had taught her a set of swordplay that he had learned in his previous life. This set of swordplay was murderous and fierce. It was ever-changing and all-encompassing. It was incomparably complex. Even the evil prince in his previous life spent 3 months to learn this set of swordsmanship by chance. Unexpectedly, Mei Shuyan was so talented that she had memorized the whole set of swordsmanship in less than 10 days. This made Jun Moxie open his mouth wide and almost dislocated. Damn, this girl is much smarter than me in my previous life. This set of swordsmanship contained the evolution process of the 4 seasons. It integrated the endless evolution of spring, summer, autumn, and winter, such as the rain in spring, the scorching summer, the bleak autumn wind, and the icy winter snow. It was also called 4 Seasons Killer Sword. Although it was said to be a set of swordplay, in reality, every season's transformation contains several variations. Even though Mei Shuyan was talented, she had only practiced it for a short period of time. Naturally, she was not proficient in it. Seeing that Zi Jingheng was actually using this kind of fighting style, she had to wait for Jun Mo Xia anyway. Since she had nothing better to do, she might as well use these people as practice. Unexpectedly, the effect was so good. Therefore, Mei Shuyan practiced one set of swordsmanship after another. Along the way, Mei Shuyan found that the power of this wonderful and complicated swordsmanship was so horrible. Although Mei Shuyan had expected it to be extraordinary, she did not expect that this set of swordsmanship would be so strange and powerful. This set of 4 seasons absolute killing sword technique naturally couldn't compare to Tian Fa's heaven-punishing sword technique in terms of lethality. But in terms of its nimbleness, exquisiteness, density, and its own concept, it was far superior to Tian Fa's heaven-punishing sword technique. Especially when using different states of mind to activate the sword will, every time she tried it, she would have a different understanding of it. Mei Shuyan suddenly realized that when she used this set of swordsmanship against her enemies, as the sword will evolved, it actually had a magical effect of improving her state of mind. This unexpected gain made her extremely happy. In this period of time, with the help of Jun Moxie's elixir, her cultivation had improved by leaps and bounds. Her speed of cultivation was also much faster than before. But as a martial arts expert, while Mei Shuyan was happy with the rapid improvement of her cultivation, she was secretly worried that if she only focused on improving her cultivation and neglected the improvement of her state of mind, it would not be good. It must be known that the corresponding advancement of Xian Qi required a certain level of state of mind to complement each other. If she only improved her cultivation but did not improve her state of mind, then it would be like holding a barrel of dynamite. At the critical moment of a breakthrough, she could be invaded by the demons in her heart and go berserk. This was the most important point of cultivating one's state of mind. Now that she had unexpectedly obtained this set of swordsmanship, it just so happened that it made up for the flaw in her state of mind. Although Jun Moxie had also learned this set of swordsmanship in his previous life, he was the king of assassins. His attacks had always pursued speed, accuracy, and ruthlessness. Naturally, he rarely used this kind of complicated swordsmanship and did not have the chance to use this set of swordsmanship against his enemies. So in this aspect, his comprehension was not as deep as Mei Xuan's. You're tuning into the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.